All right. What's good, people? What's good?
Indians coming, Indians coming, Indians coming, Indians coming, Indians coming. Uptown Indian, downtown Indian, West Bank Indian, Mardi Gras Indian, Indians coming, Indians coming. Nobody running, make no move out. We don't know how. Early in the morning, up early that morning, 5 already. I got my machete. Unade, unade. What they say, we on our way. Downtown Indian, uptown Indian, West Bank Indian.
Yes. What's good, peeps? So, it's myself, the Fast Step. Uh, yeah, debut live stream alongside the General Chief Inca. What's good,
Walk
Sam?
on, people. Walk on, brother. Walk on, copper. Walk on, people. Walk on to the work.
Yeah, so this has been a long time coming. A lot of people have told us to get on this live stream wave, so we're finally getting it done. We just had to figure out, what topic we were going to touch on first. We decided what topic we're going to touch on first, and so as you can see from the title, the topic today is true colors. So what we mean by true colors as the chosen discussion is we're going to be taking a look at black and white. Some people might feel that black and white are skin colors. They might feel these are identities, these are ethnicities, and so forth. So we're gonna take a little look at that and see what we can find out for ourselves. So what we are going to do is we are going to be screen sharing very shortly, and then we're going to be doing exactly that. And then we're going to be showing you the sources that we've come up with together to explore this idea. And then by the end of it, everybody involved listening and watching back on the video should be able to get a very strong idea of what black and white actually are. If the sound is good on my end, can you just press one for me and let me know before I proceed? So if the sound is good, can you hit one? Okay, we got a one from Gambler.
And for me as well, press one, please.
Yeah, if you can hear Chief Inca as well, one. Okay, good stuff, good stuff. Okay, good stuff. So we're gonna do screen share now, so let me get to that. Once again, thanks to everybody who's locked in right now. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so to begin with, so we're gonna start here on this website, origin of the word black. Okay, so from sophisticated elegance to evil incarnate, few colors conjure up such strong images as black. The origin of the word black stretched back to a group of tribes known as the Proto-Indo-Europeans. According to etymologists, these ancient groups likely used the rather unelegant sounding word bleg to mean burn or gleam. As cultures evolved, bleg evolved as well. While it retained its original meaning, the word became phlegon in Greek and flagere in Latin. However, the word started to take the road to its modern form through the English mother tongue Proto-Germanic. These tribes, who inhabited Europe during the first millennium BCE, used the term black with a K in it and no C. So, Old English speakers, the Anglo-Saxons, transformed the word into Blake and began to associate it directly with the color. At the same time, they were also using the word black to mean white or bright. The words were so similar that translators are sometimes they're scratching their heads as they try to determine whether the writer was describing something that was black or white. Black was also used as a verb. For example, one 16th century text reads, "The paper will be blacked by smoke." So around this time, the English people began to use it as a noun to describe professional mourners or a person with dark skin. Okay, so now we're going to go to black. So here you have black as an adjective, the etymology. So most people probably know what etymology is, but just in the case of people that don't, etymology is the root word, the root meaning of a word. Okay, within this original context, this is what the word would have meant rather, for when it was established. So you've got black as an adjective, Old English Blake, absolutely dark, absorbing all light, the color of soot or coal. From Proto-Germanic black as, meaning burned, alright, but it also means to burn, gleam, shine, or flash, okay? And then look here, also you have the root word here of bell, which we just mentioned in the first source, to shine, flash, or burn, alright? So if we scroll down a little bit more, here is where it comes more into character, okay? So meaning fierce, terrible, wicked is from the late 14th century, okay? So if we move on now. Alright, so Chief Inca,
Yes, brother.
yeah. So, a lot of our people, they're under the impression that we are black people, black people exist. Um, Black is an identity, and none of us learned this in school, to be honest, because I know for a fact that that when we learned our primary colors and our secondary colors, you know, black and white, we knew back then, as little as we were, that we weren't black. Okay.
That's true.
When I colored in my portrait of myself and my family, when I wanted to sketch a picture to give to my parents when I get home, I always use the brown crayon, not the black one.
That's
And if you pick up a palette of crayons, does the black crayon ever come in more than one color, or does it just come in black?
just coming
So,
from color, bro.
right,
It's
exactly.
so funny,
So,
bro. You see it.
hopefully everyone can see here, you know, we have it. We have the different shades of the so-called color black.
Mm-hmm.
And look how crazy that is at the top. You see that? So look, you've got even kind of off shades of grayish and blue mixed in there.
Yeah,
Look, you've got midnight, ink, raven, soot. I mean, okay, we could argue maybe soot and leather if you really wanted to. Some people's skin tones might match up to this, but if we're gonna take the palette in general, this doesn't represent a group of people that you walk past in the street.
I know, no.
You could use this palette to assess the different ranges of skin tone of your family. You couldn't
Mm,
do it.
no.
You wouldn't say that your family are onyx toned or grease toned or spider toned.
No, the,
It
mm,
just it wouldn't make sense, right? So
correct.
I don't know. I think it's safe to say there's nobody that matches this palette here. I haven't seen that personally.
Me neither.
So now we're gonna look at white, because people think that they are white people. And so if we look at this palette here for white, we have snow, alabaster, cream. And if we think about the people we associate as white people, again, I'm looking at this palette now, but for me personally, I don't know. I don't think this reflects so-called skin tones of white people.
Mm, doesn't doesn't represent them at all.
I've yeah, it's just doesn't exist. It's not there. So we're gonna move on to the American Dictionary of the English Language. All right,
Well, yeah, is
1828.
that okay?
1828. No, by
Okay.
Noah Webster. So this dictionary was the first dictionary, American English dictionary. So back as far as 1828, the original description of an American. So by American, obviously they're talking about an original person of the land. That's what an American would be.
Mm-hmm.
So it says a noun, native of America, originally applied to the aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. The name America must always exalt the pride of patriotism. This was said by Washington. All right. So, there's a lot of hype around what does copper-colored mean, who is it explaining, who does it describe, so forth, so forth. So I'm just going to ask you now, Chief Inca, in your mind, uh, when I say the word copper to you, what do you think of personally?
Copper is brown. Brown it's brown like a brown penny. Like over here in the UK we have brown pennies. Like copper is
Right,
brown, like my skin complexion or my skin
right.
tone.
Yeah. Copper wiring, what color would you say that is?
Brown. It's
Yep,
brown. Brown.
brown. All right, so we're in no denial that copper is the color brown, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And all right, it's a bit early into the live stream, but what group of people match the description of brown as a color? Who best would fit into that category?
Well, we know it's not Caucasian people or white people because they're not brown people. It'll be the people that you see on those lands that reflect that.
Right.
Then you look at the West Indies or even America, people that represent copper skin tone would be the people out there on the land. So it'd be the West Indians and the American Indians,
Mm.
you know.
Yep, I totally agree with that. So let's go to the etymology of copper and see what, the people that gave us this language and these words, what they have to say about it. So the first meaning of copper as a noun, malleable metallic element noted for its peculiar red color, tenacity, malleability, and electric conductivity. Okay, so let's get to this now. All right, so here we have a meme by original American warrior. So here we got two magazines, right?
Hmm.
So these both, titled Copper Romance, and it's interesting what people have they used on the front of the magazine to, embody the image of copper.
Yep.
So
It's
I'm
very
just
good.
thinking, if these people are black, why are they being used, on the front of a magazine called Copper Romance? Doesn't To me that doesn't make much sense. Why
Hmm.
is it not Black Romance?
Exactly. Exactly. Doesn't make no sense. Even when I think about it, it doesn't make no flipping sense at all.
Right, right. So let's go to the brown palette. So look, we have brown coffee, mocha, peanut, pecan, gingerbread. For me, I would say, copper would fit more into this category of brown, and I would say, so-called black people. This palette best represents them and the diversity of skin tones that so-called black people possess.
Correct.
Right.
100% correct.
Yep. So, um, yeah, I think you could take this around, your local neighborhood, your street, your area, and you could find somebody that near enough matches up to all of these. I mean, tortilla probably not, but the others more than likely. So again, the question we're going to keep asking is, why are brown people believing they're black? Why are brown people black?
I could tell
Why
you.
why are pale people white? You know.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into a book called Researches Philosophical and Antiquarian concerning the Aboriginal history by James Hines McCullough. So basically, this segment, I've had this in my possession for a little while. So right here, he's breaking down what's intended by copper colored, but he's going to contradict himself as we get further down, and I want to see if anyone can spot it. So, systematic writers have also considered the native tribes of America as a fifth class of the human species under the distinct term of the copper-colored race. To this term we have much to object, not only as respects the Americans, but other nations, from whom it seems to us they have been improperly separated by this theoretic distinction. In order to have a correct understanding of this subject, we should be told what is the copper color, for that metal has several very different hues. Any person who inspects a large quantity of copper coin before it has been much handled may perceive 8 or 10 shades of color, not only rising to an ashen yellow, but also deepening to a darkish blue. So look, they're saying there straight away.
Mm-hmm.
Comes in many different tints, many different hues, 8 to 10 hues. So, in your mind, the question you want to ask yourself now is which group of people come in 8 to 10 different hues? Who does that best fit? Who does that describe? Um, that some of these varied tints may to a certain degree resemble the general complexion of the American Indians, I am not disposed to deny altogether. But if the color of copper, as usually seen in sheets or other manufactures, is assumed as the tint, it is at variance with all the observations we have been able to make. The word applied to the human complexion is ill chosen, for the mind always associates with it the idea of metallic luster, which the skin is incapable of assuming. Even cinnamon color is objectionable, unless a more than commonly pale specimen of that article is furnished. This I assert from some personal observation among the Chippeways, uh, Potawatoms, and that other American Indians are not characteristically of this copper color may be reasonably inferred not only from the descriptions given by more recent travelers, but also from finding the same term copper color applied to natives of the South Sea and certain of the Asiatic and African tribes. Okay, so look, they're telling you there's people in, you know, the Asiatic region, Asia, and Africa who also fit the description of copper colored. So again, which group of people share the same skin color as Africans?
Mm-hmm.
And look, he's just run up a whole list here. Hainan Islanders on the coast of China, copper color. Inhabitants of Disappointment Islands, deep copper color. The Malays of Timor, deep copper color. The Nicobar Islanders, copper color. The Nassau or Pocky Islanders, so Nassau is obviously the Bahamas, of a light brown or copper color like the Malays. So I don't know. I always thought the people in the Bahamas of today still fit that description.
Yep. True.
And then let's keep going. The Mangadino Mohammedans, deep copper color. Guam natives, copper colored like other Indians. The Bashi Islanders, dark copper color. Free Wills Island natives, Indian copper color. The Lagoon Island natives, copper color. So look, all of these people here, they're using to describe as copper colored as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the accurate descriptions they were given, before the black business came about.
Mm-hmm.
So they were properly describing people within a reasonable context of aesthetics and color. So let's see what the Oxford English Dictionary has to say. All right. Of the very darkest color owing to the absence of or complete absorption of light, the opposite of white, for example, black smoke or her long black hair. But the one that I find interesting is here, number 2. Belonging to or denoting any human group having dark colored skin, especially of African or Australian Aboriginal ancestry. So I've had people in the past, I've heard things in the past like the Australian Aborigines are Africans, Aboriginal means African, but the Oxford English Dictionary, which English speaking people of the English language who create the language have put in their own definition is that they've made a clear distinction between African and Australian Aboriginal ancestry. So again, my question is why wasn't, Australian Aborigines just, you know, automatically in the Africa bit?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make any sense to me.
Neither does it. Neither does it to me. Same thing,
Right.
but
Okay, Mother Running Red Wolf said copper is used for a conductor. Conductor is required to bring balance. Yep, absolutely.
mm-hmm.
So even there, look, they're showing you, look, there's distinct groups of so-called black people. So there goes your ancestry thing right there, because look, they could have just thrown them in to this section here as Africans and just been done. But they made a point to separate Africans and Australian Aborigines. All right. So this book is called Goeth's Theory of Colors. So just bear with me. We're going to scroll down to this page right here. So effects of black and white objects on the eye. So in the same manner as the retina generally is affected by brightness and darkness, so it is affected by single bright or dark objects. If light and dark produce different results on the whole retina, so black and white objects seen at the same time produce the same states together, which light and dark occasion in succession. A dark object appears smaller than a bright one of the same size. Let a white disk be placed on a black ground and a black disk on a white ground, both being exactly similar in size. Let them be seen together at some distance, and we shall pronounce the last to be a fifth part smaller than the other. If the black circle be made larger by so much, they will appear equal. So the reason why I pulled up this one here, for me, that perfectly explains, the concept of black and white, like down to a T. So they're basically telling you that to the human eye, you know, black is black is perceived by the retina as insignificant compared to white. So white takes up your attention more than black, and for black to be seen on par with white, black has to literally be bigger in size just to assume an equal size into your natural eye alongside the color white. So for me, that's exactly what they've done in real life. Black equals insignificant, unimportant to the eye compared to white. Would you agree with that?
100%, bro. 100%. Correct.
So for me, it looks to me like literally they've just taken aesthetics and used that as the base ground of status.
Hmm.
Black is insignificant to the eye unless it's larger than white to appear like it's equal with white. And this explains black people. Black people, you know, on a social footing next to white people are smaller, insignificant, and they have to overachieve to assume a bigger sizing to appear equal to what's perceived to be white. You know.
Hmm.
All right. So now we're going to move on to a book called Things of Darkness: Economies of Race and Gender in Early Modern England by Kim F. Hall. So, all right. The trope of blackness had a broad arsenal of effects in the early modern period, meaning that it is applied not only to dark-skinned Africans, but to Native Americans, Indians, Spanish, and even Irish and Welsh as groups that needed to be marked as other. However, I assert that in these instances, it still draws its power from England's ongoing negotiations of African difference and from the implied colour comparison therein. Thus, the Irish may be called black, and an English woman may be called Ethiopian. But these moments always depend on a visual schema that itself relies on an idea of African difference. In practice, this means that although I concentrate primarily on representations of Africa and Africans and descriptions of black skin, it is impossible to look solely at a single broad group, for the investigation of one difference inevitably opens up inquiry into other cultural, religious, and ethnic differences. My discussion therefore often expands to include Muslims, Native Americans, Indians, white North Africans, and Jews. During the period, the designation Moor very often stood alternatively for many of these categories, especially as it became a general term for the ethnically, culturally, and religiously strange. Similarly, I will use blackness and black to cover both social practices and cultural categories. I also use the term black to refer to Africans and Africa descended people in England, the Caribbean, and the Americas. Although this practice might leave me open to the charge of refining the very binarism I am trying to deconstruct, I prefer to think of my usage of black as a term that opposes the dominance of white or light, and that foregrounds the role of color in organizing relations of power. So, Audre Lorde articulates this position with some sympathy, but suggests that it is problematic. I see certain pitfalls in defining black as a political position. It takes the cultural identity of a widespread but definite group and makes it a generic identity for many culturally diverse peoples, all on the basis of a shared oppression. This runs the risk of proving a convenient blanket of apparent similarity under which our actual and unaccepted differences can be distorted or misused. There must be a way for us to deal with this, if only on the level of language. For example, those of us for whom black is our cultural reality, relinquishing the word in favor of some other designation of the African diaspora, perhaps simply African. All right, so just to kind of evaluate there. So they're saying that, using the word black is a problem. Reason why it's a problem is because it just lumps all different groups of people together.
Mm-hmm.
Black doesn't really describe anything because for a start, we just showed you not long ago that, you don't match up to the shades of black on the black palette. So black doesn't describe you physically, so it definitely doesn't describe you as a person of certain ancestry. And we can't even say that black means African because look, they just showed you here that black can be applied to anybody, white, Irish, Native American, Spanish, Indians, as in East Indians. So again, black doesn't mean African because they've just proved that here. Black basically just meant outsider, someone that hadn't been enrolled into the concept of whiteness yet.
Mm-hmm.
So right there we can see black doesn't mean, you know, your skin tone, and it doesn't mean you're from Africa either. So now you need to ask yourself, what does black mean? So if we keep going, let's scroll further down here. For while I agree with Lord's reservations about the term black, her suggested alternative African carries similar problems. It replaces a generic term of color with a term of geography that is in fact no less generic when we think about the organization of communities within the continent. This usage is particularly vexed for the early modern period since Africa, as we see in modern cartography, did not exist for the writers with whom I am dealing. Okay, so there you go. Look, Africa's not even that old either.
No.
So you can't be from there because look, they're telling you back in this period of these so-called periodic writers, there was no Africa for them to really refer to. So how old is your motherland? How old is your Africa?
Mm-hmm.
Is it old
Mm-hmm.
or is it recent? Is it dated or is it quite modern?
Mm-hmm.
No? So let's keep pushing with this. So although, as Lord points out, I risk erasing very real and significant cultural differences, for this project, that risk is superseded by the problem of working with representation of diasporic people whose self-determined cultural identity is largely lost to me. Black encompasses the peoples of the African diaspora without having to make attributions of nationality and culture that have been erased from historical records or do not obtain in the early period. For example, is an African just brought to the American colonies African American? Similarly, should African slaves brought to England and expelled before 1600 be called Afro-English or Afro-British? Rather than negotiate such tangled thickets in this space, I adopt the simple albeit problematic uh, nom- nomenclature black, the critical dismissal of an aesthetic of fairness as mere fashion, and thus not to be taken seriously, overlooks the ways in which fashion also works to circumscribe women. Even scholars of the black presence in the period who have made the link between the language of dark and light and the representation of darker skinned peoples pay only cursory attention to the ways in which this language, especially in connection to race, is highly gendered. Frequently, black in Renaissance discourses is opposed not to white, but to beauty or fairness, and these terms must often refer to the appearance of moral states of women, as in Putnam's derisive example that a black woman is the opposite of fair. So this is not to say that men are not fair or black in this discourse, but that the terms acquire a special force when they are turned to women, and that they are most frequently used in relation to women. So they're saying to you right there that originally when the word black came about, it was a feminine use of language. It was used to describe whether a woman was seen as ladylike. So if she was ladylike, she was seen as white, and if she acted, unladylike, she was seen as black.
Mm-hmm.
So again, they're talking about modern European women. So how did they start off being black, but now you're black? If black means dark skin now and African, you know.
Yeah.
So when I first saw when I first saw this, it was crazy. But yeah, look, they're telling you right there. It was used to describe a woman's character. Nothing really to do with her appearance. It was to do with her characteristics within society.
Hmm.
All right. So let's move on. All right. Are black and white colors? So this is Britannica. You want to read this one, bro?
All right, no problem. Color.
All right.
In terms of pigment, is every shade and hue found in a brand new box of crayons and any combination you could make from them. To put in scientific terms, however, color is simply the range of visible light that humans can see. Different colors, such as red and orange, and other invisible spectrums, such as infrared light, move around in waves of electric magnetic energy. The human eye is capable of seeing only light with wavelengths between 380 and 750 nanometers. For example, the visible spectrum begins the invisible the for example, the visible spectrum begins with the wavelengths that we call violet between 380 and 450 nanometers. Then moves on to blue, green, yellow, and orange, and ends with what we call red between 590 and 750 nanometers. When you look at someone's red shirt, for instance, that shirt will be absorbing or scattering wavelengths of low light than 590 nanometers. So, thus waves will not reach your eyes, but a red shirt will be reflecting some wavelength between 590 and 750 nanometers, which your eyes process as red. The trouble in this scientific approach is that some colors considered important in the crayon box are notoriously missing. Black and white, as well as colors like pink, don't seem to have a place in a visible spectrum of light that goes only from violet to red. So, does this mean that black and white aren't real colors? Hmm.
Ah,
Okay.
boy.
It depends on how you want to define a color. If color is solely the way physics describes it, the visible spectrum of light waves, then black and white are outcasts and don't count as true physical colors. Colors like white and pink are not present in the spectrum because these are the result of your eyes mixing wavelengths of light. White is what we see when all wavelengths of light are reflecting off an object, while pink is a mix of the red and violet wavelength. Black, on the other hand, is what your eyes see in a space that reflects very little light at all. That's why, if you enter a room with the lights turned off, everything is dark and black. If you include in the definition of color, however, all of the ways in which human eyes process light and lack of it, then black and white as well as pink earn their places in the crayon box.
There we go. All right. So yeah, that was just put in there to give people a bit of a refresher on how we
Mhm.
perceive color, because obviously we get a vague understanding of this at school,
Yeah.
but socially for me what I've noticed is from young we get taught what a color is.
Mhm.
We get taught what that is, and then they undo all of that by getting you to call yourself something which goes against what they've just spent all their time in school teaching you.
Mhm.
For me, that's a crazy thing.
It
So
is.
yeah, this was just a little refresher. Just so people understand how colors work as we go on. Right, so this one here, is there such a thing as having black hair? Okay, so this person said, naturally, no, not really. No one has hair that is absolutely black, even if the darkest hair is actually deep brown. Depending on texture, hair can appear to be black in color, but if you inspect under a magnifying glass or microscope, you'll see this is not the case. Considering the color of hair and skin is a result of melanin, the more melanin you have, the darker the hair or skin. Black is not a naturally occurring hue, which is why you've never actually seen a person who was black. Only with artificial pigments, hair dye, or what have you, will one have hair that is 100% black.
Correct.
Right, so there you go. Simple as that. So not even the hair on your head today, right now, growing out of your skin is 100% black.
No.
And that is closer to looking black than your skin. So if your hair's not 100% black, your brown skin definitely ain't black either. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it is what it is.
That's me.
So your skin's not black and your hair's not 100% black either. So what exactly is black? Because it's saying here that really black can only be achieved through artificial means, when you manufacture it into existing as a color, is what I've taken away from this so far.
Same.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, let's go on. Alright, so here we have a book called Ethnic and Cultural Diversity in Nigeria, edited by Marcelina uh, Olunma Ofoa. Um, the reason I went to this book is because we know that they called the Indians of the Americas the Red Indians, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is how people still remember Indians of the Americas today, Red Indians. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I ended up looking at the Fulani, but I just like to stretch um, my attention to different areas of interest. And I came across this. So for some historians, think that the Fulani are a mulatto intermixture of Phoenician colonists from Syria with Wangara women of pre-Tuareg Berber origin. Emerging from somewhere in the central Sudan, they entered northern Nigeria in the 13th century. From their center in Sokoto, the town, or settled Fulani, who had embraced Islam, declared a jihad holy war in the 19th century under the leadership of Uthman Dan Fodio and thus spread out in all directions in northern Nigeria. The major cities where they settled after the jihad include Yola, Bauchi, Kano, Hadija, and some parts of Adamawa and Yawur. They established a Fulani empire until the British conquered northern Nigeria in 1903. Today, the Fulani number about 4 million. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. So, there are two groups of Fulani, the town or settled Fulani, who are the aristocratic class, and the Cow Fulani in Bororo. The Fulani language is called Fulafud, and the people call themselves Filo. J. R. Wilson Huffington states that the word Fulani is derived from a Berber root, ful or pul, and is in origin a nickname meaning the red men. So, having said that, if Fulani means red men, let's just, let's take a look and see what the Fulani look like. So remember, they just told you Fulani is a nickname for red men. Alright, so let's look at that right now. Alright, so here, we've got a picture of the Fulani here. Alright. So what would these people called the red men of Nigeria, what would they be called now? What would they be classed as? What would people call them?
If you're asking me, they're labeling them as black.
Right, black. So my question to people here is if Fulani translates to red men and the Fulani look like this over here, and they look like this, and these people are considered black, okay, then who are the red men that they're talking about in the Americas? What do those people look like? Because if we think about the people that they call red men over in the Americas, do they look like these people here? Do they match the description? Do they fit the bill? I'm just gonna say no,
Yeah,
because they don't resemble these people.
they got no
Look, you
care.
see people here. They say the Indians had, aquiline noses, high cheekbones, and
Mm-hmm.
these are typical Fulani traits. So if the Fulani have high cheekbones, aquiline noses, and brown skin, which is called black, then again, my question is the same. What are the people, the red men of the Americas, supposed to look like?
The same, innit?
Right,
Brown
so
people.
let's ask ourselves which people in America today would fit the description of the Fulani who are red men? Which people across the Americas would fit that description?
The so-called black people that's on there.
So the point I'm making with this observation here is that look, even in the place that's been given to you as your motherland called Africa, look, it's the clues still point back to you because these people are called red men, and you're in the Americas right now, and you closely resemble these people. So wouldn't that make you, the red men of the Americas? Just a thought. Just a thought. All right, let's keep going. So 5 times Crayola fired their crayons. All right. Right. So cousins Edwin Binney and C. Harold Smith introduced their first 8 Crayola crayons in 1903. Since then, the world has changed, and so too have the names of their waxy creations. So let's go down. Oh, here we go. Number one, flesh gets a new name. While everyone acknowledges that the civil rights movement brought about great strides in American society, most individuals overlook the high advances it brought to the crayon community. In 1962, Crayola voluntarily changed flesh to peach in an attempt to avoid any legal issues and encourage people to embrace seeing the world in black and peach. Okay, so my thoughts on that are just peach. You know, I think flesh. They realized flesh was too accurate and they had to go and remix it. That's my opinion.
Exactly. That's what all these people do, innit?
Right, so here we go. This is the one we want. Number three, Indian red was a nod to India? Question mark. Introduced in 1958 with 15 additional colors, finally giving children 64 shades to work with. This color was actually named for a pigment that originated in India. Over the years, teachers began to worry that children would see the crayon as a reference to American Indian skin color. In 1999, the Crayola company changed the name to Chestnut, but that too came with a disclaimer. I wonder why. The crayon manufacturer warned children that, despite the famous song, these chestnuts should never be roasted over an open fire, mainly because they soften and melt at around 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so they changed Indian red to chestnut, and again, let's ask ourselves, what color people are chestnut? Is it the people that are called black by any chance?
Food for thought.
So, for those of you who already know about the crayon business, you know what it is already. But obviously, look, we can see here they were worried because they were being too truthful with the name of the crayon,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't fit into how they were getting ready to change things and switch the game up. So they had to quickly change it to chestnut. So again, they took the ethnicity out of it, you know, and they just made it a generic term. But again, like if you just take a step back and analyze, it's the same color. Chestnut, American Indian is the same thing, just different linguistics, different wording.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Yo, bro, I'm just gonna switch my light on, but if you want, you can read through the comment section, see what people are saying.
Yeah, cool, cool.
All right. All right, I'm back.
Well, 2 seconds, bro.
Yeah, yeah, I just went to switch the light on, so it's getting dark in here. All right. So I've got this book here called The Peoples of the Caribbean. Nicholas J. Saunders is the author of this. So we're going to be looking at something called the Black Legend. So some of you might know about this already, some of you might not. But again, this just stood out to me. Uh, Thinking about etymology wise of what black is. So the Black Legend was the name given to the European views about the cruel and intolerable behavior of the Spanish in the Americas and especially the Caribbean. Although such attitudes existed long before the 20th century, the term seems to have been first publicized by the Spanish writer uh, Julian Juderius y Loyo in his book of the same name, published in 1914. So the origins of the attitudes represented by the Black Legend are commonly believed to have originated in the work of Bartolomé de las Casas, who charged the Spanish conquistadors with decimating the native peoples of the Caribbean, most notably in his widely read and translated Brevísima Relación de la Destrucción de las Indias, a short account of the destruction of the Indies, published in 1552. So Theodore de Brye's graphic depictions of murder, rape, and savagery, which illustrated his editions of La Casas's work, fixed in delible images of the horror of Spanish treatment of the Amerindians in the European mind. While La Casa's book was published in the 16th century, when Spain was a major power, within 100 years the country's imperial position was declining. Censorship followed, and the Brevísima Relación was banned. So, again, I just want to take people's attention back to the etymology of black.
Mm-hmm.
So here it is here. But the characteristics, meaning fierce, terrible, and wicked. So they're basically calling this the Black Legend because his conquistador came, saw the American Indians of the islands, and what he did to them was fierce, terrible, and wicked, making him a black man because he was black in character. You know?
Mm-hmm. Evil.
Yeah, evil. So these people they're literally showing you that they are the original black people.
Mm-hmm.
They are the original black people in character because the things they came and did was fierce, terrible, and wicked. These are descriptions, terminology that they've created for themselves. So they are literally playing out that terminology in front of you throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't know any better, then you don't know any better.
That's true. True, brother. Nothing has
Right,
changed, man. Nothing has changed. It's still the same.
right,
You can
right,
absolutely
right.
say it. But proceed, bro.
Exactly. All right, so let's just keep going. So remember, black is really to do with character. The whole thing about identity being based on the skin tone, that's very recent, like 1600s.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna go into that even further and keep reiterating that with this that I found here. So the reality of race. The term white people was invented by a playwright in 1613. Thomas Middleton's The Triumphs of Truth is the earliest printed example of a European author referring to fellow Europeans as white people. Okay. The Jacobean playwright Thomas Middleton invented the concept of white people on October the 29th, 1613. The date his play The Triumphs of Truth was first performed. The phrase was first uttered by the character of an African king who looks out upon an English audience and declares, I see amazement set upon the faces of these white people, wound rings and strange gazes. As far as I and others have been able to tell, Middleton's play is the earliest printed example of a European author referring to fellow Europeans as white people. A year later, the English commoner John Rolfe of Jamestown in Virginia took as his bride an Algonquin princess named Matoaka, whom we call Pocahontas. The literary critic Christopher Hodgkins reported that King James I was at first perturbed when he learned of the marriage, but this was not out of fear of uh, miscegenation. James's reluctance, Hodgkins explained, was because Rolfe, a commoner, had, without his sovereign's permission, wed the daughter of a foreign prince. King James was not worried about the pollution of Rolfe's line. He was worried about the pollution of matokas. There you go. So the concept of race. Both examples might seem surprising to contemporary readers, but they serve to prove the historian Nell Irving Painter's reminder in The History of White People, made in 2010, that race is an idea, not a fact. Middleton alone did not invent the idea of whiteness, but the fact that anyone could definitely be the author of such a phrase, one that seems so obvious from a modern perspective, underscores Painter's point. By examining how and when racial concepts became hardened, we can see how historically conditional these concepts are. There is nothing essential about them. As the literature scholar Roxanne Wheeler reminds us in The Complexion of Race, 2000, there was an earlier moment in which biological racism was not inevitable. Since Europeans did not always think of themselves as white, there is good reason to think that race is socially constructed, indeed, arbitrary. If the idea of white people, and thus every other race as well, has a history, and a short one at that, then the concept itself is based less on any kind of biological reality than it is in the variable contingencies of social construction. Okay, so you can't genetically be white, that's impossible. So there's no one on this planet that has white ancestry, that has white genes, that has white DNA. Yeah, none of that exists.
White teeth. You know what I mean? But,
Yeah, it doesn't exist. It's simple. It just doesn't exist.
mm,
And remember, they're writing all of this stuff that I'm reading. This all comes from them. So yeah, they're contradicting themselves. So yeah, it doesn't exist. It's not biological. So then again, I'm gonna ask people listening, what is a white person? Who and what is that? If you had to be white only as far back as the 1600s, then what were you before that?
exactly.
Because biologically you wasn't white then. Biologically, you're still not white now. So what are you as a white person? So this means you also biologically can't be a black person. So if you're not biologically black, what are you?
That's a good question.
Hmm. So the scholar Kim Hall explains in Things of Darkness, 1996, that whiteness truly exists only when posed next to blackness. Okay, so the concept of white people emerged only after constructions of blackness. As
Exactly.
binary oppositions, whiteness first needed blackness to make any sense. So look, they're telling you in an allegorical way there, look, you had to come before them for them to even exist.
Mhm.
They literally say it there, whiteness can't exist without blackness. You know, they can't be here unless you're here.
Mhm.
So the two words create each other. The scholar Virginia Mason Vaughan writes in Performing Blackness on English Stages 1500 to 1800, 2005, that blackface characters in early modern dramas are often used to make whiteness visible. Black and white have never referred to defined groups of people. There are abstract formulations which still have had very real effects on actual people. Okay. So I think you know people should get the gist here of what this is trying to say.
Mhm.
In a nutshell, black, white are not biological; they're socially made. White has only been around since the 1600s, so it's new terminology. So again, what were people before the 1600s? If you had to be white after the 1600s, then ask yourself, what did they have to be before that? What and who are they, and what were they going as?
Mhm.
All right. So here, yeah, it is Wikipedia, but yeah, this is still dropping drops and gems here, so we are going to use this. So Black British. All right. So Black British are British citizens of Black origins or heritage, including those of African Caribbean, sometimes called Afro-Caribbean background, and may include people with mixed ancestry. The term has been used from the 1950s mainly to refer to black people from former British colonies in the West Indies, i.e., the new Commonwealth, and Africa, who are residents of the United Kingdom and who consider themselves British. The term black has historically had a number of applications as a racial and political label. and may be used in a wider social-political context to encompass a broader range of non-European ethnic minority populations in Britain. This has become a controversial definition. Black British is one of various self-designation entries used in official UK ethnicity classifications. So key word in there was self-designation. So we are going to touch on that as part of this, but we'll keep going. Black residents constituted around 3% of the United Kingdom's population in 2011. I'm just going to say it now. Obviously, I don't believe that for a minute. I know Chief Inca doesn't believe that for a minute. I don't believe we make up 3% of the population. But, you know,
Yes, that's BS.
if,
That's,
if that's what they want to go with, then so be it. Chad said, which Afro-Caribbean? That's a good question. I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is either, brother.
I have no idea what Afro-Caribbean person is. I don't know that funkiness is. But as we proceed, so the main part I want to draw people's attention to, right, terminology first. Historically, the term has most commonly been used to refer to black people of New Commonwealth origin, of both West African and South Asian descent. So I'm going to repeat that again. Historically, the term Black British they're talking about has most commonly been used to refer to black people of New Commonwealth origin of both West African and South Asian descent. For example, Southall Black Sisters was established in 1979 to meet the needs of Black, Asian, and Afro-Caribbean women. Note that Asian in the British context usually refers to people of South Asian ancestry. Black was used in this inclusive political sense to mean non-white British. So let's put up a picture of the Southall Black Sisters because I know what they look like. Oops. Okay, here we go. So, alright, so here we've got a picture of the Southall Black Sisters. So again, what are the majority faces that you see in that picture? Remember, they named themselves, the name they gave themselves was the Southall Black Sisters. So the so my question is, what is black again? Because now it's turning into a politically inclusive kind of regime, and they're telling you it's a political movement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So look, early, when black was a term thrown around, it just meant you weren't white British, you know? I'm just going to use that context, white British. So it just meant outsider, you was other. If you're not white British, then you're black.
Mm-hmm.
And they're telling you it's a political movement. That's where black power comes from, because that's what black is. It's a movement.
Mm-hmm.
The same way how communism is a movement, black is a movement. You know?
Yeah.
Same thing. That's what I get from it. It's the same thing. So let's keep going. In the 1970s, as a time of rising activism against racial discrimination, the main communities so described were from the British West Indies and the Indian subcontinent. Solidarity against racism and discrimination sometimes extended the term at the time to the Irish population of Britain as well. Ooh, okay, so now Irish people are now black as well.
Mm-hmm.
So West Indians are black, West Africans are black, South Asians are black, Irish people are black. And this is in the 1970s.
Not too long ago, bro.
So that was only yesterday, you see?
Mm-hmm.
So when did black start meaning African? Because Irish people, the last time I checked, you know, they were being described as African people. Last
Okay.
time I checked, South Asians also were
Mm-hmm.
being described as people of African origins. So how does black now in 2018 automatically equal Africanness? So another question for people to just take away and ask themselves. Because look, they're showing you right here. Not even that long ago, in the 1970s, it was politically all inclusive of just about everybody who wasn't, you know, typical white English.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, several organizations continue to use the term inclusively, such as the Black Arts Alliance, who extend their use of the term to Latin Americans and all refugees, and the National Black Police Association. The official UK census has separate self-designation entries for respondents to identify as Asian British, Black British, and other ethnic groups. Due to the Indian diaspora, and in particular Idi Amin's expulsion of Asians from Uganda in 1972, many British Asians are from families that had previously lived for several generations in the British West Indies or Southeast Africa. All right, so the bit now I want to focus on census classification. So, the 1991 UK census was first to include a question on ethnicity. As of the 2011 UK census, the Office for National Statistics, the ONS, and the Northern Ireland Statistics and Research Agency, the NISRA, allow people in England and Wales and Northern Ireland who self-identify as black to select black African, black Caribbean, or any other black African Caribbean background tick boxes. So yeah, my question there is, look, if we're all the same, then why do you need so many different choices in that black section? Why is there not just one box that we all tick? Would be my question from a sensible point of perspective.
Because they're not all the same, innit? It's just a simple question. It's a simple answer, man. We're not all the same people. Because our skin's brown, that mean all the same race cut people, man. What do them? But
Right,
okay, bro, proceed.
right. So, because technically, if you descended from somebody who ended up in the West Indies or the Americas via slavery, then that's your native land. You're not from there. You just ended up there by, circumstances. So
Mm,
technically, you wouldn't be allowed to call yourself a so-called West Indian. In my mind, you would have to call yourself what you were before you made the boat journey.
yeah.
So if apparently it's 100% facts, we all came from over there, then there should be no such thing as a Black Caribbean section because that's not your home. You just happen to reside there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That will make you African first and West Indian second. So why is there a Black Caribbean section? Why is it today in 2018 you still have a choice to clearly differentiate yourself from either one hemisphere or the other?
Mm-hmm. They still call you West Indian to this day. They still call Uno West Indian to this day. No West African West Indian.
Right, right.
On the cricket team, West Indian. Carry on, fam. Carry on.
All right. So for the 2011 Scottish Census, the General Register Office for Scotland, the GOS, also established new separate African identity. Let me start that again. Um, the General Register Office for Scotland, the GOS, also established new separate African Scottish or African British and Caribbean Scottish or Caribbean British tick boxes for individuals in Scotland from Africa and the Caribbean, respectively, who do not identify as Black Scottish, or Black British. In all of the UK censuses, persons with multiple family ancestries can write in their respective ethnicities under a mixed or multiple ethnic groups option, which includes additional white and black Caribbean or white and black African tick boxes in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Okay, so there you go. And they keep saying that you self-identify as this. I don't know if anyone else picked up on that, but they said more than once here, you choose to be black. So my question now is, if you're born black, why are they telling you you're making the choice to be black? Which one is it?
It's your choice. What you
If you're born
identify with.
black, why are they telling you that it's a self-identifier? If you are what you are, people say DNA doesn't lie. Okay, so then you claim you was born black, but they're saying you choose this. So clearly you make a moral choice what you want to be in life. You choose if you want to be good or bad, You choose
Mm-hmm.
if you want to be proactive or lazy. They're telling you you choose if you want to be black or not. It's a choice. It's a choice. You
Yeah.
wake up and decide, do I want toast or do I want shreddies? You make a choice. Which one are you having? Am I going to be black or am I going to be, am I going to be a living natural person? Well, not a person because a person's not a real thing either, but that's for another day. But you know what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a moral choice. You're choosing to be black. So when people say, oh, because black people suffered this and they're getting that, they say you get what you signed up for. They literally tell you you signed up to be black. So you signed up to be a slave. You
Yeah.
signed up to get, to get beaten down, to get disrespected. You ticked off that was fine. You was happy with that. You contracted with that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just following your wishes. You said I'm black, and they're fulfilling your wishes because this is what a black person can hope to expect in their life. It's I can't explain it any more than that. Really, it's a moral choice. You choose it. They just told you it's not biological. It's social. Social is a choice. Society. Society is defined by choices people make. So you make the moral choice to be black. Okay. So Black Panther Party around the world. So here, while short-lived, the Black Panther Party succeeded in inspiring marginalized people around the world to join the struggle against oppression. So again, people under the perception black means African. So let's see, if that's reflected in here, who the Black Panthers were working with. So when most people think of the Black Panther Party, Buddhists in India don't come to mind. Neither do Polynesians in New Zealand, Jews in Israel, or Aboriginals in Australia. Yet they all rallied behind that very name and honored one of the party's tenets to fight against oppression by creating their own movements in response to their locality's unique socio-economic conditions and injustices. So no matter their differences, these international outfits serve as an apt reminder that racial tensions have never been confined to the United States, and that the Black Panther movement was more influential than history often gives it credit for. Here are 7 countries where the Panthers and their supporters, while no longer active today, looks different than the young black American men that we typically associate with the movement. So look, first one, they're showing you here England. Did anyone in
Mm-hmm.
school learn about the Black Panthers of England growing up in England?
No, one of my eyes used to be one of them.
Okay, nice. There you go. Okay, so what was our recollection of it?
I don't really talk to you, brother, about them things there.
Okay, all right, no worries. But um, how many people would you reckon across the pond know about the so-called English Black Panthers?
Not many, not many people here, born here, know about them things there.
Right, right.
To be
But they're
fair.
telling you, look, they're telling you right here, there was a branch here, the first international branch. So the first international branch of the Black Panther Party was formed by West African and West Indian immigrants in London who ran the British Black Panther movement from 1968 to 1972. So they're telling you directly outside the, States, this was the first of the first, outside of that part of the world.
Mhm.
This came directly after the United Kingdom's population had more than tripled in a span of only 3 years, from 300,000 in 1961 to 1 million in 1964. So wait, hang on. I just noticed. So they're saying we was 1 million in 1964, but now in 2018 we only make up 3%, and more people have come since
I'm chatting a bag of BS, man.
then.
All I have to say.
Oh, so let's just keep pushing. So okay, we had them in England. Let's see what other ones. Oh look, India. So we have Black Panthers in India. The Dalit Panthers formed in early 1970s India. Dalit means poor or downtrodden. Yeah, so pretty much means the same thing as black. And the group indeed focused on the nation's untouchable castes. These were people that Indian law historically excluded from society and relegated to poor paying jobs and slums. Alright, so you know, Dalits, black means the same thing. It's a political structure. It means you have no respect. You're not meant to get any respect. You're not meant to get any rights. Nothing's supposed to be done for you in society. Like you will never amount to anything. These are all interchangeable terms. They just have different names depending on what culture you're referring to, but it all
Mhm.
means the same thing.
Yep. Right.
Look, even in New Zealand, look, you've got Polynesians in New Zealand. Many Maori and Pacific Islanders in New Zealand found the Black Panthers ideology particularly relatable. The Polynesian Panther Party was mainly founded by high school students whose parents had immigrated to New Zealand in the 1960s. Faced with constant threats of deportation, inferior schools, low paying jobs, and dangerous neighborhoods, these first generation teenagers used the Black Panther ideology as a rallying point for change. So black is a state of mind as well. Because again, it's To be black is to be rebellious. That's why they say, oh, black people are wild, black people are vicious. Because it's to be black is to rebel because you are at the bottom of the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously this ideology exists in other places as well.
The same system.
Let's keep going. Let's see where else. Where else were the Black Panthers at? North Korea and China. The Black Panther Party forged ideological and diplomatic bonds with North Korea and China, with members drawing inspiration from each government's respective social teachings and receiving public support in return. Eldridge Cleaver, one of the most prominent and controversial members of the American Black Panther Party, visited North Korea in 1969 in an effort to elevate the party's political influence and international standing. So look, they've even reached out as far as here to the Far East. Because again, it's a political structure, so it's one political movement linking up with another. Because obviously the Far East was, still is, because it's a communist hotspot in the world. So this is why I'm trying to say again, black is a movement, it's a political agenda. So that's why you had the Black Panthers going around the world and were able to identify with other so-called black factions because to be black means to be rebellious.
Mm-hmm.
Communism was seen as a threat towards, uh, the people we call white people. So it was seen as a radical movement. So it was, in the same context as black, same thing. Algeria. So Algeria became a symbol of hope for black people around the world when it achieved independence from France in 1962. As such, the country hosted several revolutionary movements, including the Black Panthers. The group set up its international embassy in Algiers, where the Algerian government gave them a building, a living space, a stipend, and the ability to issue visas and grant asylum to other members of the movement. For this reason, many Panthers who were forced to flee the United States found refuge there. Okay, so let's just pause on that there. So it's interesting to me that, they say, the slave trade happened by the millions from not North Africa, but West Africa, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we're just going to say that's what they say because that is what they do say.
yeah.
But now we have the situation where the Black Panthers, when they needed refuge, it wasn't West Africa that they found this refuge, it was North Africa. And if you think of North Africa is what people would say inhabited by what they associate to be Arab people. So my question is, if you were stolen from West Africa, why couldn't your Black Panthers seek refuge back in, their specific region of the homeland where they got stolen from? Why did they have to go to the north of Africa where this other phenotype of people are at? Why did they give them the refuge that they were looking for? Does it really add up to me? What do you think, Chief Inca?
Boy, I'm with you, bro. 100%. Doesn't make no sense to me. Doesn't add up. I don't
Right.
get four. I get one.
Yeah, so this stood out to me straight away again. It's just, I just want people to, you know, go away and just think about this stuff because a lot of it doesn't make any sense. Um, yeah, do your own research. Don't take anything that you get from this video as the concrete truth. I'm not telling you to believe anything I'm saying that, I'm 100% in my critique or, where I stand with this information. By all means, do your own research and whatnot. But so far from what I'm seeing is, yeah, the concept of black people and white people existing and none of it makes sense. Like in the way they're telling it anyway, it doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep going. Oh, peace, guys. What's good? Uh, okay, Israel. All right. So when you think of Israel, what kind of people spring to your mind, bro?
Off the bat, looking pale looking people, innit? Pale.
Right. Yeah, same. I would argue with that. So in Israel, the Black Panther torch was taken up by Mizrahi Jews, Jews descended from the Middle East, North Africa, and Central Asia, along with other minority groups within the Jewish community. The discontentment in these groups began as soon as Israel was first established. Mizrahi Jews had left their predominantly Muslim home countries, to seek refuge and acceptance in the new state. But when they arrived, they faced continued inequality, being relegated to inferior neighborhoods and worse paying jobs than Jews of European descent. So in 1971, a group of Mizrahi and other Jews formed the Israeli Black Panthers. The party rapidly gained popularity, and on May 18, 1971, they hosted a militant protest of 5,000 to 7,000 demonstrators in Jerusalem's Zion Square. The Night of the Panthers was meant as a statement against income inequality. It succeeded in getting the Prime Minister's attention, and social service budgets were enlarged shortly afterward, if only for a brief moment. So let's look at what the Israeli Black Panther Party looks like. Just to have a bit of fun.
Mhm.
Let's upload it. And here we go. Here we go. So, can you see that, bro?
You have to see clearly.
All right. So their party, let's bear in mind, is called the Israeli Black Panthers. But if we were to aesthetically judge these people, for better term of words, what group of people would we say these people are? Would we call them black? Would you call them black, or what would you call them?
They're pale people, man.
All right.
Pale.
So pale would translate for most people to white. They would just call these people white people, right?
Yeah.
So my question again is, why do the faces and the name of the party, why do they not compute? Well, at glance anyway. But for me, it makes perfect sense because, these are black people because black means pale.
Mhm.
So these are Black Panthers because they're pale. So they are Black Panthers. They're not lying.
That's true.
It's a truthful cause. And again, within their social context, they are also black because they are in a state of certain oppression. They are the lower end of the ladder of their social hierarchy. So yeah, yeah, these are black people right here. 'Cause that's what it means. That's literally what black means. I mean, and it's a double-edged sword because it can mean dark and pale at the exact same time. I mean, how only in the English language does that happen?
That's true.
But that's what I mean. They're using it now in the more insidious context where they've taken the pale aspect out of it and they're strictly using it for brown skin. But obviously, we know that's not the origin.
Hmm.
So now this as well, just to back up, our little talk on, Black British as a identity. So black and minority ethnic groups increasingly more likely to be stopped and searched by police. So this was October 2016. So what I want to draw attention to is this bit here of the 386,474 stops and searches made last year. 58,397 were of people who self-identified as being black or black British. So look, again, they're telling you you're making that moral choice.
Hmm.
They're not saying you are that, they're saying you self-identify as that. So again, ethnicity and nationality is a choice.
Hmm.
It's a moral choice. So I'm gonna keep saying that. I'm gonna keep saying it. Nationality, ethnicity, race is a choice. What you feel you best describes you as a person. So
Hmm.
here, this is from the Spectator. So black, colored, BME, any kind of label is essentially racist. It's time to move on. So this is by a guy called Rod Little, and this piqued my interest as well. So I had to definitely hang on to this. All right. So how should we refer to non-white people and foreigners in general, given that of course we do sometimes need to mention them, perhaps over dinner in whites, or when mulling over where to go on our holidays? This is an important question because the approved terminology seems to shift by the day, if not the minute, and we could find ourselves in a lot of trouble. I remember the late US politician George Wallace, when he was governor of Alabama, being ticked off for having used the word Negroes. Quite unacceptable, he was admonished. The correct term is blacks, and there's an end to it. Sheesh, Wallace replied. We just get used to calling them Negroes. I accept, of course, that when it comes to the issue of how not to racially offend someone, George Wallace is an imperfect role model. In later life, he got a bit nicer and he was very sorry, as we all will. I was drawn to this topic as a consequence of the plight in which one of our most celebrated young actors, Benedict Cumberbatch, finds himself. During an interview with the black presenter Tavis Smiley on a US TV show, Cumberbatch bemoaned the lack of opportunities for black and ethnic minority BME people in the UK film and television industry. This is something we should all do, given the opportunity when abroad. Slag off the UK for its inherent antediluvian racism. The problem, though, is that Benedict did not use the term BME, he used the term coloured people. Oh dear. Cue the inevitable Twitter course. How very dare he? There was a mass screeching of outrage, and Cumberbatch was forced into making one of those very familiar public apologies. No scraping the ground, visions of his highly promising career going up in racist smoke. Probably did not help that A. Cumberbatch was the star of the extremely PC movie 12 Years a Slave. I'm just putting it out there, that was fake.
Mm-hmm.
That was hella fake. But you know, that's for another day and time. But yeah, that's fake. And B. His own family made its humongous fortune out of slave plantations in the Caribbean. I'm rather with the Labour MP Chris Bryan on the unhealthy profusion of toffs in our films and in the music charts, and have never had much time for either Cumberbatch or his equally well-bred and agreeably fey colleague Eddie Redmayne, whom my wife slavers over. Alright, RIPs, we are getting there. I feel a sparrow fart of sympathy for him now. Apparently, the correct term in the USA is not even black, but people of color. I don't know. Maybe some people would feel that fits them best. I don't know. I'm just saying the people I talk to over there, they don't go by any of that weird stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Forgive me, but there is no meaningful semantic difference between people of color and colored people. Why does one offend then when the other does not? I mean, he makes a good point there, to be
Mm.
honest.
No, it does.
Isn't this a case? Yeah, this is a Caucasian, by the way, but isn't this a case of confected outrage and manufactured sensitivity? To his credit, the presenter, Mr. Smiley, stuck up for Cumberbatch, largely because he had been making a very PC point with which nobody anywhere is allowed to disagree, or the Twitter cost would turn into Twittergeddon, and that would be that. People of color, well, is better than black, I suppose. That term annoys me because it is inaccurate. So again, this is a Caucasian saying this. So he's saying that term annoys me because it is inaccurate. I have never, ever seen a person who is truly black, and nor have you. And because it is a demeaning political cognomen dreamed up by witless white liberals. So this Caucasian saying he's never seen a black person in his life.
So how are you black? Hey.
It is life. So neither have I. I ain't never seen one, man. I ain't never seen anybody that looked like my Air Force high tops.
Me neither, bro.
I ain't never seen anyone that looked like the shoe polish under my sink. I'm still yet to see that. So this guy, for me, seems to be on the money here. But to each their own, as you will. Let's continue. It is a synonym for non-white and is designed to lump all ethnic minority people beneath one flag. Okay, so aren't people doing that right now? Oh, I'm black. The world started off black. We're all black.
Mm-hmm.
Black is this, black is that, black and black. So yeah, every time you use that word, you're using it out of context, because it doesn't describe anywhere. We've just shown you it doesn't mean African, doesn't mean you come from there. So where does it point to in the world? Where does a black person originate from? So, yeah, it is a synonym for non-white and is designed to lump all ethnic minority people beneath one flag, defined by the fact that they are not whites and thus objectively oppressed by whitey's cultural and economic hegemony. A quarter of a century ago, the Commission for Racial Equality instructed journalists that British Chinese people should be referred to as black. You can imagine how that went down with the Chinese. Okay, so look, these people even tried to throw the Chinese people into that whole black thing when they got here, and the Chinese people were like, hell no with that. So my question is, if the Chinese didn't want anything to do with it, why do you want something to do with it right now? maybe because the Chinese people had sense and they saw that this term, was used to put them in a certain box which they had no business wanting to be in.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, black has now been superseded over here by the cumbersome black minority ethnic, shortened to the horrible BME. I've never called myself an ethnic minority in my life.
Me neither.
At any stage in my life. Even when I was, rocking with the misinformation and everything, I never once called myself a person of color or an ethnic minority. I never used that word,
Never. Never. Man. Never came in my mind.
bro. Look, Look, BME. Its implication exactly the same as black. You are all defined by your non-whiteness. The demonym tells us by your solidarity in the struggle against oppression, and you are all the same. Any differences you might cleave to are simply the consequence of what Marx rightly termed false consciousness. So some people think it's good because it's like, oh, well, we're all together as one people. But look, this Caucasian clearly telling you that is not a good thing. So, why would he say that? If if you're all definitely one people, it wouldn't matter, would it?
Hmm.
Why would it be a complication to lump everybody under the term black? If look, if me and you and the next man in Australia, the next man in Melanesia all originated from that place they call Africa anyway, then what does it matter? If we all came from there, then we all came from there. So what would be the complication with lumping us all together? There'd only be a complication if you clearly share, or shall I say, don't share different paths of ancestry.
Mm-hmm.
So look, this guy knows all this. So again, so if he knows this, ask yourself, why don't you know this, or why aren't you thinking about this kind of stuff? You are defined by your difference from the majority, singled out by the color of your skin as a beleaguered and put upon minority, and we would enjoin you to reveal in your acquired victimhood. So yeah, look, being black means to agree to being a victim. You sign up to, get the dirt dished out on you. You
Mm-hmm.
choose that.
All a joke.
The third generation descendant of Jamaican immigrants, the recent arrival from Vietnam, the businessman from the Punjab, all BME, all the same. This is a palpable nonsense, isn't it? Both black and BME are presumptuous and I suggest racist terminologies. The country would be a happier place if we did away with both terms. Boy. I can, man, probably leave that there. Look, people should get the gist. So look, he's telling you right there. Right, next one. Why do police use IC codes instead of just stating the person's ethnicity? So this is by Ralph King, police detective at Cambridgeshire Constabulary. Um, he's still on the job, it says. So clarity for descriptions. There are, or last time, sorry, I looked anyway, 7 codes for this descriptive aspect. So for people who are from the States, IC codes is basically a racial structure guideline of how police assess you from eye level when they're dealing with you. Um, these are categories that they put you into based on eye perspective. Um, so if we proceed with IC1, which means white, Northern European, IC2, Hispanic, Southern European, IC3, black or Afro-Caribbean. Um, so
I,
again, look, um, yeah, it's crazy. Go, bro.
no, no, no. Cool,
Oh,
it's cool. I think do some more, but
okay, so IC4, Asian, as in Indian, Pakistani, Bangladesh, etc. IC5, Oriental, Japanese, Malaysian, Chinese, etc. IC6, Arabic, Middle Eastern appearance, and then IC9, unknown. So these are outward descriptors that can instantly generate a generic image to officers if broadcast over the radio. I hope you can already see why these codes are better than verbal descriptors. What one person calls Asian, another may call Arabic. A white guy with a strong tan can look IC2 or even IC3 or 4. Well, I don't know. I don't know how a person with a tan could look IC3.
I don't know about that.
I wouldn't say that. IC3 or 4. A very light-skinned black person can appear IC1 and so on. These were cooked up a good 30 to 40 years ago, so they are a bit dated. Yeah, that goes without saying. They do not denote anything more than skin tone or generic facial structure. No lumping people into certain traits or social grouping. I don't know if I agree with that.
Never.
So when we deal with people, prisoners, witnesses, etc., we have to ask how they describe themselves against a different scale. So that you can see it broken down here. So Asian or Asian British is broken down into Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, or Asian other. Look, black or black British, look, you have a choice. You could be Caribbean or African. So my question is, if you are just, you're here by accident, and this one here is the mother, the be all and end all, why aren't you taking this one here? Or why don't you select that one there? That would make more sense to me. I'm just saying.
Mm.
Then you got mixed, Chinese, and white, and so forth. So yeah, these are IC codes. If anyone wants to look this up, IC codes. So here's where it gets really good. So when these codes were brought out, there was a little sulking that they didn't include white English. You just can't make everybody happy, can you? So interestingly, a person can give any ethnicity they want. So I'll say that again. Interestingly, a person can give any ethnicity they want. So a white guy can say they are B2 or A3 if they want, and we have to record it as such. So let's see what B2 and A3 are. Let's go back up. So B2, African, A3, Bangladeshi. So really and truly, I can say I'm white British. They can't tell me I'm not because it's social. There's a social structure.
Choice.
Even if that officer doesn't like it, that I'm trying to associate myself with his so-called lineage, tough. He has to record it as such because it's a social construct. It's got nothing to do with biology. He's not white English by biology, so he doesn't get to have the deciding say on that.
Mm.
So look, you could look like Chief Inca. You could be Indian or Bangladeshi if these officers pulled you over. And look, this officer literally just told you they have to record it as such. So my question is, if ethnicity is biological, why is there a choice in the matter? Because people don't choose their biology; their ancestors determine that for them.
True.
So when people say, black and white, and they're British and they're this and that, are you? Are you sure? Because these people that know the information and use it to judge you at eye level and use it to judge you in a political and social environment seem to say otherwise. So let's keep pushing. All right. All right. So here we're gonna trek over to the pod now. So United States Census Bureau. So the U.S. Census Bureau must adhere to the 1997 Office of Management and Budget (OMB) standards on race and ethnicity, which guide the Census Bureau in classifying written responses to the race question. So white means a person having origins in any of the original people of Europe, the Middle East, or North Africa. Black or African American, a person having origins in any of the black racial groups of Africa. American Indian or Alaska Native, a person having origins in any of the original peoples of North and South America, including Central America, and who maintains tribal affiliation or community attachment. Then we have Asian. So an Asian person, a person having origins in any of the original peoples of the Far East, Southeast Asia, or the Indian subcontinent, including, for example, Cambodia, China, India, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Pakistan, the Philippine Islands. If anyone hasn't seen what the people in the Philippine Islands look like, go and Google that. So just a little drop there. Thailand and Vietnam. Then final category, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, a person having origins in any of the original peoples of Hawaii, Guam, Samoa, or other Pacific Islands. All right, so Chief Inca, from me reading that and breaking down the different categories just there, like, what did you notice from me reading that, if anything?
Boy, it's a social contract, man. You know, these people that like to label people. You know what I mean? But obviously, it's a choice. They give you a choice. You choose, innit, what you are. You know. You choose and you say what you are, innit? You tell them what you are.
Yep. And I don't know if anyone else caught this, but look, a white person has origins in a set of original people. American Indians, Alaska Native have origins in an original set of people. Asian people have origins in an original set of people. Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander have origins in an original set of people. Black or African American have origins in the black racial groups of Africa. So why don't they have origins within the original people of Africa? Why don't they have that?
Hmm.
So are they trying to tell you that black people aren't original to Africa then?
Yeah, rightfully so, innit? That's what it says.
So I would say this fits into when I just said earlier in the live stream that black doesn't equal African, because they're telling you that black people have no origins to original people in Africa. Black racial groups of Africa isn't the same as a person having origins in any of the original people of Africa. There's a big difference.
Mm,
So if black people aren't original to Africa, where are they from? Because that's supposed to be the place where all blacks come from. If you're going off, racially motivated science, and whatnots, then this is the be all and end all of so-called black civilizations and black skin Africa. So they're saying right here in the bureau that black people aren't original to Africa. So if you're not from Africa, then where does a black person originate from? It kind of says you originate from nowhere. You're a no man.
mm,
Black
no,
doesn't equal anything.
mm, no culture, no heritage, no land, no nothing.
Okay, so I'm gonna say that, they're saying right here that black is nothing. You have no originality, you have no origins. The black racial groups of Africa can be anything because we've already shown you that black can incorporate anybody at any given time because it's a movement.
Mm,
All right, let's keep going. So why are some black Africans considered white Americans? So you probably heard this again, Chief Inca. Black. It means that you're African. It means that's where your ancestors came on the slave boat. Black doesn't mean anything else. Black and white are skin colors. It's people. So here, Sudanese Americans do not fit neatly into the existing racial classifications of the American society. So this is written by a Sudanese American, or shall we say a Sudanese person who resides in America. So I always knew I was black. My childhood was the scent of coconut oil, hair cream, and the taste of bean pie after Friday prayers in a Bilalian mosque on Chicago's south side. I knew the words to Nkosi, Sikela's I Africa, and called Harold Washington my mayor, even though I lived in the suburbs. My parents had immigrated to the United States from Sudan in the late 1970s and raised my sister and me to be comfortable in our skin. I spoke Arabic at home and English at school, where it seemed no one else agreed that I am black. Hmm. So outside of the box, when my father registered me for kindergarten, the school administrator told him that we had to select a box to designate our race. My father, raised in a post-colonial Sudan mired in ethnic tensions and civil war, wondered aloud why the government was tracking pupils based on race. The administrator recommended that since Arabic is the language spoken at home, we should mark white.
wow.
My father, whose adolescence was shaped by Frantz Fanon, Patrice Lumumba, and Malcolm X, laughed. He patted his conspicuous afro and wryly said, "We may speak Arabic at home, but you can clearly see that we are black." My experience highlights the absurdity of US racial classifications. The US Census Bureau classifies all Arabic speakers as white, owing partly to the fact that the earliest Arabic speaking immigrants to the US were Levantine Christians who could and wanted to pass for white. So becoming white. US history is defined by centuries of rigid racial hierarchy with enslaved Africans and their descendants at the bottom of the heap. Catholics, Jews, and Southern European immigrants were not automatically granted whiteness and its legal benefits. So let's pull that up again. Catholics, Jews, and Southern European immigrants were not automatically granted whiteness and its legal benefits. So again, white's not biological because you are what you are when you're born and you come out into the realm. So if white is biological, how do you need to earn your way in like a golf club? I don't understand that. So, but by the 20th century, if a man looked white, he enjoyed full benefits of citizenship. But if he looked or was suspected of being black, then he would have to contend with racist laws designed to disenfranchise and terrify African Americans. The immigration of non-Europeans threw a wrench into the system. Early 20th century Arab immigrants were not interested in being on the wrong end of Jim Crow laws and did not want to live as non-citizens like some Asian immigrants. They petitioned the government to grant them legal whiteness, and it did. The civil rights movement of the 1960s began to chip away at systemic racism. The Arabic speakers who immigrated to the United States after the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act, including my parents, were much more diverse than the previous waves. And here, look, here's a picture of the author's paternal grandfather. So again, look. So it says right here, would have been classified as white per the U.S. Census Bureau. So race is literally whatever side of the bed you wake up on. Because look, this guy comes here and he'll be perceived to be what's called black, right?
Yeah.
He goes to America now and he's white. So all he's done is taken a plane, he's got across the Atlantic, and now he's a white man. So my question is, if race is biological, why can a man be black and white depending on where he gets a plane ticket?
Mm-hmm. Very good question.
So
Play game, man. Play game.
most of the newcomers, who included people from 10 African countries, could not pass for white even if they wanted to. So look, she's saying these people resemble this, but they're still being, counted as the color of this page that I've got up right now. But again, it's not a color, it's a status in society.
Mm.
So identity erasure. My elementary school wanted to designate me as white because Arabic is my mother tongue, but no one was under any illusion that I actually was a white person. But then again, don't forget she's going off color, all right? So rather the question was, as an Afro-Arab, am I black enough to be considered racially black in America? Sudanese Americans' racial identities are often erased. Ahmed Mohammed, the so-called clock boy, was described as brown by many commentators as if he was South Asian. Famously, Aziz Ansari, the Indian American actor, tweeted that he stands with Ahmed because I was once a brown kid in the South too. I'm a Muslim woman who wears a headscarf. I cannot point to an afro to prove my blackness. Like Ahmed, my racial identity is often erased and transformed into an amorphous brown other. Having your racial identity erased means hearing racial slurs against your community in your own language. It can also lead to absurdly ironic situations. My family used to live in a predominantly African American apartment complex whose residents were uh, boozed into predominantly white schools. Sorry, bused into predominantly white schools. Once, a white woman stepped onto the bus with her blonde granddaughter and scanned the aisles. She loudly commanded, "Go sit with those Indian girls. I don't want you to sit next to any niggers." It was only when the girl plucked herself down next to us that my sister and I realized that the older woman had been us. So this this white woman looked on the bus. She see these two Sudanese people and just saw, oh, they're Indians. Obviously, when we say India, we mean East Indians.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, they share the same complexion as a so-called African American.
Exactly.
So that's crazy to me. Crazy to me that this so-called Caucasian person scanned the bus, saw these dark Sudanese people, and still saw them as other, the category of other.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sudanese Americans do not fit neatly into the existing racial classifications of our society. Though many identify as black, proximity to the Arabic language negates their claim to blackness in the eyes of others. The artificial line between North and Sub-Saharan Africa has followed us across the Atlantic, and during the Sudanese civil war, journalists often described a conflict that pitted the Arab North against the African South. For the reader, the word Arab conjures images of pale-skinned people from the Middle East, not images of my ebony-skinned great-grandfathers irrigating their farms along the banks of the Nile. Um, yeah, so people should get the gist of what this is saying as well now. So, according to, again, US Census Bureau race criteria, these people aren't black. They're white people, white men, white women, white children, white everything.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if black is hereditary, why would the US authorities be going out of their way to tell these people to their face that they're white? So again, race is not biological, it's social, it's a moral choice. It's what you want to be. So I want people to think now, if these so-called dark-skinned people from Africa are on paper white people, what about the other people of their complexion from West Africa? Where do they fit in this paradigm of US racial constructs? Because if a dark-skinned person from Sudan is white, then what is a dark-skinned West African person? What is a dark-skinned East African person? What is a dark-skinned South African person in the US? What are they? So, this story some people probably know about, but for those of you that don't, this is about an Egyptian guy who moved to America. So black or white, Egyptian immigrant fights for black classification. So this is going back to 1997. So an Egyptian immigrant is suing the US government because they've told him he's white when his entire life he's been black. Mustafa Hefni was born in Egypt and has always been proud of his Egyptian culture and his African ancestry. But when Hefni immigrated to America, the US government told him he was no longer a black man. I was not told by immigration that I was white until I passed the exam for citizenship, and then I was told I am now white, he explains. Hefni initially laughed when told of his new racial classification, but he's no longer chuckling. He recently filed suit against the US government to get his race classification changed back from white to black. It hurts me, it definitely hurts me, Hefni said. It hurts me because I'm unable to reconcile my reality as a black person. In addition to the emotional hurt, Hefni says that when the government changed his race, they also changed his social status. So let's just, Craig David, rewind that again. So, so in addition to the emotional hurt, Hefni says that when the government changed his race, they also changed his social status. So again, they didn't say that his genes changed to that of a white person. His social status changed, not his biological structure. He didn't suddenly grow blonde hair and develop blue eyes to fit the white classification. His social standing changed with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep saying it. Race is social. It's pseudo. I'm gonna say it's pseudoscience because it is. It's literally a moral choice. Keep saying it. You decide what you want to be, and these people decide what you're going to be, depending on where you decide to end up in the world.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
true.
really put it out there. Like quite frankly, you could be black here, and me and Chief Inca could jump on a plane and go to North America and become white people, because if they're going to go by the context of language being one way of determining whiteness, you could say English is a white language.
Mm.
So then that would make you white. That's what they're telling you. They're telling you there's more than one way to qualify for whiteness, because whiteness is a ballers club. You earn your stripes to get in. So one of the problems with the naturalization process, in Hefney's opinion, is that race is classified by geographic location and not ancestry. That's part of the immigration process his lawsuit hopes to change. So there you have it. They're not judging you based on your mother's mother. They're literally basing it on pseudoscience. The black race is fixed to here, the white race is fixed to here, but then the two can easily become ambiguous.
Mm.
So the lawsuit targets Directive Number 15 of the U.S. Office of Management and Budget. The directive defines black as a person having origins in any of the black racial groups of Africa. A white person is defined as having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, North Africa, or the Middle East. In the late 60s and early 70s, they found that different agencies were using different definitions for the same categories of people, and they thought it was important to have comprehensibility across federal agencies, explains Sally Katzen of the OMB. So look, they're literally telling you the goal line shifts however they perceive it. So
Mm-hmm.
race isn't set in stone. Whatever they want it to mean to them on the day is what they're going with. So
Exactly.
again, how do you choose what biology is on a day by day basis? You are what you are. You are what your mother's mother is. You are what the first ancestor that came out of the dirt is. How do you just suddenly just, change that? One day I wake up on the bed, I want to be A, and then tomorrow I want to be B. Like, how do you do
I don't know, brother. You know, you know, brother. I
that?
just please, bro.
Oh man. So the OMB is hoping to change the way they define races by revamping the troublesome directive. The principle we thought very important is self-identification. So look, he's telling you there again, self-identification. So they're not really hiding anything from you. It really and truly, it's just that you choose not to know. You choose not to know this because they're telling you on more than one occasion. You choose. You make the choice.
Mm-hmm.
You
That's
make the
true.
moral choice. You want to be black, fair enough, but there's going to be some consequences when you do that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
really and truly, look, they had to find a way to make you want to be, you know, the lower end of the gutter. Because look, if I offered if I say to Chief Inca, how would you like to have me um, stomp your face out on this pavement right here and throw you in a bully van? Would you say yes or no?
I say, fuck no, blood. I'm gonna speak my
Right.
language. Speak my language. I apologize.
So you're not going to choose that because a sensible man wouldn't do that. But if I tell you, well, like, look, you're black, and you're, well, what's that? Well, black is you. That's your ancestry. And then I'll show you a bunch of films and documentaries to try and prove this fact to you, to get you to agree to letting me beat you up and throw you in the back of a bully van. Then we now have a different situation. You know, you've now indirectly agreed to your mistreatment and your abuse. It's just that I couldn't spin it to you in a more direct way and say, how would you like to get your teeth knocked out, or how would you like to be economically disenfranchised, or how would you like to be relegated to the history of a slave on a slave ship? Like, how would you fancy that? Like, no one's gonna really go for that. But then if I tie it into race, which is based off social structure, then now it's different, and now I've got you to acquiesce to it. So that's all they've done. They just got you to agree to being mishandled. They've got you to agree to having a pauper slavery story, which
Mm-hmm.
is, the only thing you can be, because a black person can only exist within slavery. That's
Yeah.
why Black History Month is all about slavery, because a black person can only come from a slave background. You can only come from the story of a ship. You can't come from a history of your so-called African kingdoms that you may believe that you came from, because they
Mm-hmm.
already told you black people aren't original to Africa, by their own definitions of what race is. So your story is only ever going to begin in the bottom of a boat, defecating, urinating, and menstrual bleeding all over each other by the millions, like Noah's Ark. Your story can only ever be that.
Programming.
hmm
Programming.
That's
Programming.
all. That's all you can have. That's all you can have. So, um, the principle we thought very important is self-identification, Katzen says. I think that it is almost beyond dispute that an individual should identify himself or herself rather than have someone else do it. Although it seems the government agrees with Hefney in principle, it refuses to respond publicly to his lawsuit. He expects that response later this year. Just for the record, I still think he's classed as white. I don't think he ever won that lawsuit. I don't think he won it. But for those of you that haven't seen him, I will show you what Mustafa Hefney looks like. And then, let's see if you see. Alright, so, so this is the white man in America. This is him.
Yeah. So they're classified as white.
So your man's
Documentation.
got a throw like mine and yours,
Mm-hmm.
and this man became white upon arrival in America. So again, if this man is definitely black and black equals African, why is this man with a throw from Egypt a white man and still can't? You know what the joke is? They won't. They literally will not allow this man to be black. Like they literally tell him like, no, you're white. Get out of here with that black talk. Like, so this man literally he has no choice. Like he will die being white. Like Chad said, that's a white man. Yeah, that is. So yeah, people black and white again. It's not what you think it is. It's literally whatever side of the pond you're on. But we're gonna keep going. There's more. There's more. So I don't know if anyone remembers that Boston bombing. That Russian dude. I don't know if you know about that, bro.
Duh. I don't really might be on the internet like that, bro. I still have papers, innit?
Yeah, no, no. Same for me. I just caught this story by chance, but yeah, ethnicity, religion, and the Sarnav brothers. So, a week after the marathon bombings in Boston, we're still trying to make sense of just what motivated the Sarnav brothers, the two suspects in the attacks. So, this was back in April 2013. One big question that's been central to a lot of conversations we keep seeing, just what race do the Sarnav brothers belong to? Joanne Walsh at Salon writes that if we use the rubric of the US Census, then the pair of Chechen descent are white. These days, though, Americans of Russian or Chechen descent are unambiguously categorized as white by the US Census Bureau, which says it counts as white all people having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, the Middle East, or North Africa. So it includes people who reported white or wrote in entries such as Irish, German, Italian, Lebanese, Near Easterner, Arab, or Polish. As I write, as I wrote Friday, the anguished outburst of Ruslan Sani, the brother's uncle in Maryland, was the quintessentially American cry of a newcomer wanting to be identified as a good patriotic American, not necessarily as white, but certainly not as suspicious other. But the historian Jelani Cobb, writer at the New Yorker, says that their uncle's expression of collective guilt that the Sarnath brothers' alleged actions had brought shame to the Chechens everywhere was an acknowledgement that few Americans would view the Sarnath's actions in isolation. Um, let's keep going. Uh, uh, 1 second. Where was I looking for? Here we go. Um, 1 second. Okay. No, it wasn't this one, but even still, like they're saying that they're struggling to identify like exactly what race they are. So again, I mean, it should be clear. So why would they struggle with that? So again, that doesn't make any sense right there. Let's move on. What else have we got here? Here we go. You still there, bro?
Yeah, I'm still there, bro.
All right. So now we're gonna move on to this one, which is the dark lives of China's black children under one-child policy. So again, look at the picture. This is a black child in China. They're not talking about the original people of China with Afro hair. They're not talking about that. They're talking about a different type of black. All right.
Mhm.
So this girl here, she was born in Beijing and has lived there all her life. But like millions of others conceived in violation of China's one-child policy, as far as the state is concerned, Miss Li Zhu does not exist. And just to note, this is 2015. This was. She has no right to schooling, healthcare, or a formal job. Without a birth certificate or identity papers, she is a black child, an alien in her own country, unable to join a public library, get legally married, or even take a train. So, black child, an alien in our own country. So, if you're a black person, then hmm, in the Americas, are you an alien in your own country? Are you stopped from doing certain things? So, I was born here, but I don't have any of the rights of a Chinese person, she said. Whatever I do, I'm blocked and have difficulties. Sounds like black people to me.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing in China that proves whether I even exist or not. So, she's talking from your perspective right now. I mean, you that associates yourself as a black person, she's describing your story through her experience. So again, I ask you, what is a black person and what is a white person? What are those things? So last week, the Chinese authorities announced the end of the hugely controversial policy which restricted most couples to a single offspring. Instead, all families will be allowed 2 children. Often brutally enforced abortions and sterilizations, the rules have had complex and enduring repercussions. So Miss Lee's parents already had one daughter born with the right paperwork and were on long-term disability leave from their jobs as factory workers when her mother accidentally fell pregnant. They did not want a second baby, she said, but she was too ill to terminate the fetus. And again, you get the gist of that. So a black child in China is not talking about, someone with a box trim or such. You're talking about a person who is a ward of the state, who's not recognized within society, somebody who's low down the social ladder, has no rights, you know, doesn't need to expect to receive any kind of respect. That's what a black person in China is. So, yeah, put two and two together. What is a black person? I'm hoping by now people should be able to understand what a black person is. It should be more clear to you now. And you should be under no um um you should be under any false pretenses about what a white person is either. But let's keep going. Chinese South Africans classified as black. Chinese were reclassified as black in a landmark South African ruling, allowing them access to economic benefits. So that's what black is. Black means that you're given privileges rather than rights. So already telling you from here, these Chinese people had to align themselves with blackness to get their foot through the door and get a slice of the economic pie. All right. So the country's estimated 20,000 ethnic Chinese were classed as colored during the apartheid era, but campaigners argued that since 1994 they had been seen largely as whites. I wonder why. They had excluded them from South Africa's economic empowerment schemes, which give preference for job applications and contract tenders to black, Indian, and mixed race groups. At the High Court in Pretoria, a judge ruled that Chinese South Africans must in law be considered eligible for those affirmative action programs. So where have you heard affirmative action before? Where have you heard that? Alright. It's a great relief after such a long and sometimes lonely battle, said Patrick Chong, the chairman of the Chinese Association of South Africa, which has led the fight for recognition since 2000. Under apartheid, we were not considered white. We could not vote. We could not go to certain places. We needed permits. We were marginalized like all other non-whites. But then, since 1994, we have been excluded from job interviews, business opportunities, even share offers, because now suddenly everyone decided that we were white. Today finally has changed that. South Africa's black economic empowerment programs were established after the end of apartheid to redress economic imbalances which saw whites earning vastly more than blacks. However, critics have said that the schemes have largely only benefited the country's new black elite. The study released last month said that white South Africans still earn an average 450% more than their black compatriots. So look, these Chinese people, they're saying here in South Africa, literally switched to black status so that they could get those economic benefits that, so-called blacks in Africa get. Because black and white means something different in Africa. It doesn't mean the same thing. It means in Europe or North America, which we're going to touch on in a little bit as well. So black in Africa doesn't mean necessarily the same thing as it does in England, like it does in North America. It's literally all just scattered definitions, based on man's interpretation.
Mm.
So that's what black is. Like sometimes black means that you're in line to get certain meal tickets,
Benefit.
right? And here, how Armenian Americans became white, a brief history. So let's look at this. So um, on Christmas Eve 1909, four Ottoman-born Armenian men received an auspicious gift from a circuit judge in Boston. Jacob Jacob Haladijum. I don't know if I probably butchered that. I'm not even going to attempt the other few names, to be honest with you. Had petitioned for citizenship in the face of government opposition and won. A small headline wedged into the congested third page of the New York Times unceremoniously announced their legal triumph to the world the next morning: citizenship for Armenians. Here you've got the original article here. The citizenship for Armenians, Circuit Court declines to bar them on government's plea. So December the 24th in Boston, and admitting four Armenians to citizenship, Judge Lowell in the United States Circuit Court today said that Western Asiatics have become so mixed with Europeans during the past 25 centuries that it is impossible to tell whether they are white or should come under the statutes excluding the inhabitants of that part of the world and applied usually to the yellow race. So again, do Asian people refer to themselves as yellow people?
No,
I've
that
not
never
heard
heard
that.
it. Never heard that.
So again, these things don't exist. Like they're fictitious. There's no such thing as a yellow race, a red race, a black race. Races don't have colors. They only have, stopwatches.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Judge Lowell also held that Congress may amend the statutes to provide more specifically what persons may admitted to citizenship. Until that is done and the definition of a white person clearly set forth, the Circuit Court will not deny citizenship to aliens on account of color. So we'll rewind that again. So until that is done and the definition of a white person can clearly set forth, the Circuit Court will not deny citizenship to aliens on account of color. So again, white and skin color, they're telling you separate things, not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Though the brief article was likely of minimal import for most people who picked up a copy of the Times that Saturday, the historical consequences of this case proved momentous. Judge Francis C. Lowell hadn't simply deemed four immigrants eligible for naturalization, he bestowed upon Armenians the juridical distinction of whiteness for the first time. Few months later, Congress codified Lowell's decision, decreeing that Armenians, along with Assyrians and Jews, were exceptions to the rule that so-called Asiatics were ineligible for naturalization. Although whiteness could not receive a somewhat positive legal definition until 1924, a Virginia anti-miscegenation law defined whites as those who have either no trace whatsoever of any blood other than Caucasian, or 1/16 or less of the blood of the American Indian, and have no other non-Caucasic blood. Naturalization was restricted to white persons by the Naturalization Act of 1790. This provision stayed in place until the enactment of the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952, though there were frequent changes to the requirements in between. Let's go down to this one. Despite the ruling in favor of the four Armenians, one of the arguments in the 1909 case laid bare that their classification as white was far from set in stone. Along with scientific racism, popular knowledge was often used as a justification for including or excluding people from the elusive racial category, especially in the early 20th century. So like all your racial stuff is new. It's not even been around that long. And
Mm-hmm.
these people were arguing about what whiteness is. One minute it meant this, and then someone else came along and wanted to be white, and then they had to go back and, you know, hold a little talk on it, and then say, okay, well, just for you, you can be white as well now. And this is exactly how it was working. And this is 19th, 20th century, so you've only been black and white for a very limited amount of time in this existence. So your ancestors weren't black. They they just weren't that. because your ancestors go way beyond the 19th and 20th century. So how were your ancestors black? Like now at this point, you should be able to see. Obviously, that does, doesn't add up either.
Mm-hmm.
Chad, yeah, when they say Asiatics, they're talking about the so-called Mongoloid race of people. So they're saying with these Armenians that uh, by their knowledge, by their popular knowledge, as they've termed it here, um, these people are probably so mixed with Asiatic, with Mongoloid, that they can't count for being, whiteness, because their blood is too diluted. But obviously here they won the case and they got their come up into whiteness. Uh, so where was we? Okay, yeah. So popular knowledge was often used as a justification for including or excluding people from the elusive racial category, especially in the early 20th century. This hardly definitive criterion was on full display in the Haladigan decision. The brief issued by the United States contended that without being able to define a white person, the average man in the street understands distinctly what it means. Furthermore, the proverbial average man would ostensibly find no difficulty in assigning to the yellow race a Turk or Syrian, with as much ease as he would bestow that designation on a Chinaman or a Korean. So yeah, so look, this is how the Armenians became white. So again, they were only white. They had to go to America to become white. So that means if an Armenian was still in Armenia, he was just an Armenian. He wasn't anything. He wasn't white. He wasn't anything. He just was what he was. So people literally had to come to America to become white. So again, if race is biological, why do you need to go to another land for another man to deem you what you are? Why did they have to go to America to become white? Why couldn't they just automatically become white in their respective nations first? That's crazy to me. You've got to get on a plane to become white. But I thought you was born white because I thought white was a race and white was ancestry.
The status.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I found this poster here. I'm just waiting for it to load up when I was Google searching. And I don't know if people can see that clearly or not. Um, I'll try click on it and open it up for you. It's not really going to open it. But really, it's that highlighted bit in the box that I want to draw people's attention to. So obviously, this poster is about the issue of slavery, as it's titled. Um, so you can literally see here in that highlighted section that slavery is right, natural, and necessary, and does not depend upon difference of complexion. The laws of the slave statuses justify the holding of white men in bondage. So there was a time where white status, was a thing uh, for slaves as well. You would consider white people.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that whole slave narrative wasn't a color it wasn't a color coded system of oppression or subjugation or incarceration. It was one of caste, because remember, a caste system isn't necessarily based on color. It's based off your disposition within a certain hierarchy of society. So yeah. Okay, Black's Law Dictionary. This is where we're going to look at the term colourable. Once I find it. Let's go down to here. Where is it? Ah, down here somewhere. But yeah, Chief Inca, what do you think so far?
You dropping information, man. It's valid and it's correct. I've done my research as well, so you see it, it's 100% correct. You know how these people play, bro.
Right.
But the truth's
Yeah.
going to be unfolded, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Okay, this is what I want to draw people's attention to. So, right here. So, color of law. The appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right. So, black is a color. They say it's a color, and most people would argue that they are what's black, perceived to be black. Um, so, literally, they're telling you black is the appearance of something without being the actual thing. And again, this is why black is an adjective, but it's not a noun. So again, look, they're linking everything back in for you. They're literally showing you the dots. Um, so yeah, every time somebody says they're black, they're they're judging themselves based on a description of a thing. That's like me saying, what are you to you, Chief Inca? And there's a hot day outside, and you say, oh, I'm hot. Like hot describes how you're feeling. It doesn't tell me anything about your ancestry. uh, you
Okay.
know, you telling me you're hot lets me know the state of condition you're in. It doesn't let me know, oh, well, Chief Inca's hot, so he must come from Africa. Like, it doesn't tell me that about you. Or, Chief Inca's hot, so he must be looking to eat some pizza later on. Like, it doesn't tell me anything about you.
Mm-hmm.
It just tells me the state of condition of that premises at the moment, that moment in time. But it doesn't tell me anything about yourself as a person. It just tells me about
Yeah.
your condition.
Mm-hmm.
So black lets people know about your condition. Your condition is you're in an oppressed state. This is why you're black. This is why you gravitate towards blackness,
Mm-hmm.
because you're clearly within a dire situation, within society. It doesn't tell them where you're from, you know. I mean, within a misguided context, it tells people that you have an African slave background, you know. But let's face it, everyone's being lied to. Everyone's been given the misinformation. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not just so-called quote unquote black people. This is a coded word for everybody to look at you as this slave descendant of Noah's Ark.
Mm-hmm.
So look, it's the appearance of semblance without the substance. So you can't just say I'm black because black means African. They're literally telling you no, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's you're attempting to be something. So technically, you're kind of in a way you're committing a level of identity fraud because you're pretending to be something that you're not. That's what a black person does. You're pretending to be something without actually being an actual thing.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, you're breaking rules. So they're just manhandling you for being a liar. They're manhandling you for lying on yourself, because that's what you're doing. Every time you say that you're black, you're lying on yourself, because they can look at you and see you're not that. You wake up in the mirror every day brushing your teeth and washing yourself and seeing that you're not that. So you tell yourself a lie every day. And you know what they say? Like they say don't tell liars in society. Well, you're telling one to yourself, to your family, to your children, to authorities every day. So of course they're going to treat you badly,
Mm-hmm.
because within their constructs of society, liars have to get dealt with. I
Okay.
mean, they're liars themselves, but you're playing by their rules.
Mm-hmm.
Their rules say that liars who don't fit in with, their social standing have to get dealt with. So people that lie and say they're black are, they're being something that they're not. So we have to punish you for being something that you're not. So you're not black. How dare you try and act like you are? That's not a real thing. So we need to bust your head real quick. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what it is. I'm just gonna cut this money away from you real quick, for being a liar. So yeah, you're misrepresenting yourself. So remember, it's a moral choice. Moral choice. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Uh, Again, this picture right here. Let's click on this, see if it opens up. Hopefully it does, because this is a good one. The good one that I want to use. Okay, so this picture is a colored belle of Puerto Rico. Um, Uh, but basically, I want you to do in your own time is to look up this picture here. It's called a colored bell of Puerto Rico, and read it carefully, and see what it says in the description, and then yeah, you'll see how it fits in with this. So that's a little bit of homework for yourself. I'll set you there. Uh, let's go on to this one now. See what this page is saying. Okay,
You want to
the
open that
census.
phone? Hold on, you want to open the phone lines, bro, or just stay to the end?
Um, yeah, no, we can do that. Yeah, you could drop the number if you want.
Alright, cool, cool.
So just let everyone know what the number is if they want to call up.
Okay, I'll do that in 1 second, bro.
All right. I'm just going to jump to the comment section. Um, all right, hold tight. Lazan, what's good? Thanks for sticking in the chat. Chad, what's good, fam? Ah, Black Jedi, yeah, I just saw you sub to me. Thanks for the sub. Appreciate that. I'm gonna sub to you right now. Okay. Okay, yeah, sure, Chad. When I go back over this, I'm gonna literally drop all the links of everything that I used um in this presentation, and then everyone will be free to go up and then look through all of that themselves. Who else have we got? Um, I know we had Gambler in here at one point,
Mm-hmm.
and Jeremy Dodger as well. So big up you guys as well.
Big up yourself, man. Big up yourself, man.
Yeah, thanks for everyone for turning up for the debut live stream. You know,
That's
thanks, Chad. Appreciate that. Yeah,
much love, man. So the
yeah.
number is, if you want to call in and speak to myself, Chief Inca or Copper, the number is 074915256768. So the number is 074915256768. You want to call in and speak to us.
All right, awesome. Okay, so here's a little something I stumbled across as well. What the census calls us a historical timeline. So for those people that don't know, first ever U.S. census was all the way back in 1790. All right, and look, they've even got an image of it here. Let me see if I can pull that up. There you go. Look. So the return for South Carolina having been made um, since the foregoing schedule was originally printed. The whole enumeration is here given complete except for the Northwestern Territory of which no return has yet been published. So I just want people to pre the categories up there. So for the first ever census, bearing in mind you're supposed to be, African slave, stolen from your home. Let's see if your African categories in there for the first census. So first category, free white males of 16 years and upwards, including heads of families. So first thing you should be asking yourself is on the first census, why would they need to stress, whites being free? I thought they were just always free. I thought they were just always Massa, always Miss Anne, um, you know,
Mm-hmm.
always overseer, all of these things. So look, you're not even in the first category. We haven't even got to you yet.
This is a lot.
Next one. Free white males under 15 years. So again, free white people. So that means there must be white people who aren't free like these ones. So then what are those non-free white people doing?
We can't sleep.
Free white females, including heads of families. They seem to have a lot of sections for these free white people. All other free persons. So who's that? Is that free, all other free white persons? So I guess this would be the so-called Africans. So why are they called free Africans? Slaves. and then the total. So there's no mention of Africa in here anywhere. And yeah, I don't I don't know about you, but I don't see it in there. I mean, people could argue, well, a slave is an African. Well, no, because look, they just started off with free whites. So that means the unfree whites must obviously fit into this slave category here somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Because look, slave is ambiguous. That's not a nationality or ethnicity, but then we know those things are, fixed structures. But you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
you know? So look, let's go to 1800s. So the category: free white males, free white females, all other free persons and slaves. So look, they had white, and there was no mention of black people in there in the 1790s or the 1800 one. Nothing there. Let's keep going. 1810. Free white males, free white females, all other free persons and slaves. So you're black, but you're still not in here yet. You're African, but you're still not in there yet. 1820. Again, free white males, free white females, free colored males and females, and slaves. So now we're seeing the introduction of colored. Let's keep going. 1830. Free white males, free white females, free colored males and females, and slaves. 1840, same thing, exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, look, 1850 gets a bit interesting now. White and black. So why did it take them all this time from here all the way to here for you to be black? Why did that take so long? Because they had white, white was a word then, and I'm sure black was a word then, because look, they're telling you black and white came about from around the 1600s. So then why, over here was you not here?
Mm-hmm.
You had to wait all the way till here to pop up. And now you see the introduction of mulatto as well. Black slaves popping up, mulatto slaves, 1860. Oh, look, now you have Indian pop up, 1870. Let's keep going. White, black, mulatto, Indian, and now Chinese. So this lets you know the Chinese were now coming over. So they needed a category for themselves. 1880, white, black, mulatto, Indian, and Chinese again. But again, obviously, we know what black means, so it doesn't even mean African. So
Yeah.
again, why would they using your motherland continent to identify you as what you are? I mean, people could say, it was to confuse you out of your Africanness. Well, not really, no. Look, 1890, white, black, mulatto, and now look, we've got all this weird X-Men stuff going on. Quadroon, Octoroon, all this crazy stuff right here. Like
Mm-hmm.
blood quantum, and people should know by now, blood quantum, one drop and all that, that's pseudo as well, that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Not even one thing says fucking African. Excuse me.
no mention of you and your
Fucking
motherland.
African.
There's nothing
Maybe.
there. Nothing. 1900s. White, black meaning Negro or of Negro descent. So which country continent is called Negro? Does Negro
Anyway.
mean African? Some people might argue that Negro means African, but that's a time for another day. But that's some homework people can do if they're not well aware of what this is. If you are, then you know what it is. If you don't, you know, check it out. What does Negro mean? Does it just mean a person from Africa? Because I know different.
Yep. Facts.
1910, white, black, so mulatto, other, Indian, Chinese, Japanese. So if anyone's not noticed yet, what category were American Indians being classified as? Because they were going on the census. So what category would they fit into? I guess that depends on what your understanding of an American Indian is. 1920, white, black, mulatto, other, Indian, and then look, you see all the different denominations of Asia: Chinese, Japanese, Filipino, Korean, Hindu. Still no mention of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Still not there. 1930, white, Negro. Oh, so look, they got rid of black. So now black's gone, and now you're a Negro. And where does a Negro come from? And look, you still got your other Asian side categories.
Mm-hmm.
And look, mulatto's gone. So what happened to all the so-called mulatto people? Did they all die of smallpox? Where are they? So what are they now classed as? Or are they just, are we to just all of a sudden discard them off the census?
Mm-hmm.
So where did they all go? White, Negro, other, Indian again. 1950s, white, Negro, other. Oh, now American Indian comes in. All the way in the 1950s. So what were these people before 1950 on the census? When the census people were going around seeing these people, what were they being classed as? 1960s, whites, Negro, or look, Aleut, Eskimo, American Indian. So mulatto's still not on there. So again, what happened to all of them? Where did they disappear to? Oh boy. Oh, look at this. 1970. White, Negro, or black. Well, I thought a Negro was a black person.
Mm-hmm.
Which one is it? Are you a Negro or are you black? How do you decide? How do you make that choice? So,
Yeah.
so obviously, black doesn't mean Negro, and Negro doesn't mean black. Clearly. Let's keep going. 1980. White, and again, black or Negro. And then look, you get all these other things coming up: Hawaiian, Samoan, Romanian. So look, you're seeing here, right before you, that there's a huge, huge influx of,
Mm-hmm.
Far East importation. 1990, again, you're either black or you're a Negro. So which one? How do you make that crucial choice? Which one are you supposed to identify as? So they say that black is Negro and Negro is black. But look, or means a choice. It means other than.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't write in brackets. Now, get to our favorite part, 2000. So white, so black, African American, or Negro. Oh, look, so you have three choices. So being African American doesn't automatically mean you're black.
Mm-hmm.
Because look, they've listed it. They've listed it as three separate things. So Negro, black, and African American, they're just all interchangeable terms. So it took us all the way till 2000 for the word African to come up. But you've been an African for thousands of years apparently. But these people just seem to forget on the census.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So why
Exactly.
did they? I don't get it. So they held your African heritage away from you. Then in 2000 they gave it back to you. Then how have you lost it?
From the 1790s all the way to 2000. Come on, brother.
So you was missing your heritage. They gave you back your motherland heritage. So I don't understand why would they do that. Why would they do that? Seems weird to me. Very weird. So white immigrants weren't always considered white and acceptable. Italians, Greeks, Poles, Hungarians, Slavs, and other European groups. Uh, wow, what just happened there? 1 second. Wow, yeah, had to overcome prejudice over many years. Hey, bear with me, people. My laptop glitchy. Uh, who exactly is white? The answer sounds obvious. We know a white person when we see one, we think. But when Italians poured into America in the late 1800s and early 1900s, they were not considered white upon arrival. So, why do you need to be enrolled into whiteness? If white is a real thing in this, there's a white civilization of people. Why do you need to wait in the ticket line? to get in. So, um, a century later, though, when Teresa Giddis of The Real Housewives of New Jersey maniacally hoisted a table on national television, she did not do so as a member of a supposedly inferior people. No, she was a crazy white lady throwing furniture. The story of how European immigrants during that era became white enlightens us on our current political realities. Italians, Greeks, Poles, Hungarians, Slavs, and other European groups at the time called new immigrants sought to overcome their subordination by showing, through their behavior, to be deserving of being considered white. So again, look, they're telling you if you want to be white, you're gonna have to earn your stripes, you're gonna have to pull your weight, and you're gonna have to do like I do, monkey see, monkey do. You do that, you get to be white. So in 1911, Henry Pratt Fairchild, an influential American sociologist, said about new immigrants, if he proves himself a man and acquires wealth and cleans himself up very well, we might receive him in a generation or two. But at present he is far beneath us, and the burden of proof rests with him. They ultimately met that burden, and crucial to their success was that they were not black, and they actively helped in maintaining a racist society. I understood this to be true after finishing historian David R. Rodiger's Working Toward Whiteness, a book about how new immigrants became white. Between 1886 and 1925, 13 million new immigrants came from southern, eastern, and central Europe. Up until that point, people considered white generally hailed from England, the Netherlands, Ireland, Germany, and Scandinavian countries. So at the time, these people created the concept of whiteness. These people came together and created white and white status. No one else was in on that to begin with. So if you wasn't part of this club already, you was other, and then you had to earn your way to get in. Rodiger, a professor at University of Illinois, argues that new immigrants, until they were fully brought into the white family, lived in a state of in-betweenness, meaning they were placed in a racial pecking order below whites but above people of color. So again, these aren't skin colors we're living by hierarchy. The influx of new immigrants led to apocalyptic predictions about the impending doom awaiting America. Foreigners would impose their inferior biology, peculiar religious practices, and substandard ways of living onto this country, lowering an elevated civilization. Many held that they were not white, rather members of a lower biological order. The kind of view held they were simply culturally inferior, dirty, less intelligent, criminal prone, but could assimilate. Not being considered white led to new immigrant misery. Economist Robert F. Forrester wrote in 1924, in a country where the distinction between white man and black is intended as a distinction of value, it is no compliment to the Italian to deny him his whiteness, but that actually happens with considerable frequency. Greeks, for example, fretted about being mistaken for Puerto Ricans, mulattoes, or Mexicans. J. D. Ross, an Alabama politician, dubbed himself the white man's candidate and campaigned on Greek disenfranchisement. In Utah, Greek and Italian copper miners were classified as non-white. White workers in Steelton, Pennsylvania refused to take hunky jobs, jobs traditionally held by Hungarians, even during the poor economy of 1908, preferring unemployment. So here you go, that whole pull yourself up by the bootstraps thing. So people were choosing not to work because they found certain jobs degrading. So new immigrants had a choice: fight for inclusion into the white race or align with people of color who they knew fared even worse than them. So there it is. Race is a choice. Choose. Are you gonna step on these people and become, white, or are you gonna align yourself with them and essentially become black? So uh, one Serbian worker said during the era, you soon know something about this country. Negroes never get a fair chance. They chose whiteness. So again, look, they weren't born white, they chose to be white. They were given an ultimatum. Be white and step on these people, or be black, be a Negro, and have us whooping you every day and treating you exactly like we treat them. They chose whiteness as sought to demonstrate their cultural and biological fitness. They soon learned, though, when whites said prove yourself, helping protect and expand white supremacy was considered convincing evidence. They watched whites abuse blacks, mimicked whatever they saw, and whiteness, the carrot they had long reached for, slowly came closer to their grips. And, if you take a look at North America, you will see that for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
People come to America, North America, and they have a choice, They have a choice. They can self-identify as whatever they want. So obviously, people are going to gravitate towards, what has the most perks in life. It's
Mm.
it's natural. People are going to go for which table they can eat off the most. That's what that whole thing is. Whiteness is, you get to sit at the table, and then black is, you get the scraps, or when people at the table feel like it.
Mm-hmm. True.
The essayist James Baldwin frequently mused on how whiteness was made. How did whites become white? By informing their children, Baldwin wrote, that black women, black men, and black children had no human integrity that those who called themselves white were bound to respect. And in this debasement and definition of black people, they debased and defined themselves. The self-identity. You make the choice. As one Slovakian woman in Connecticut said, I always tell my children not to play with the nigger people's children, but they always play with them just the same. This place now is all spoiled, and all the people live like pigs because the niggers they come and live here with the decent white people, and they want to raise up their children with our children. Bearing in mind this woman, when she arrived in America, would have been white straight away. But it is what it is. So yeah, but again, I'll post this link. So it's quite a chunky article to get through, but so people should just be getting the gist now by now. That black and white is just moral compasses. That's all it is. Ah, what's good, Ron? Thanks for dropping in. Respect. So yeah, um, so Chief Inca.
Yes, my brother.
So people, I think it would be fair to say, associate blackness with Africa, but we rarely hear what do Africans living in Africa, non-westernized by a society across the pond, consider blackness and whiteness, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, I mean, I learned this from interacting with people across the pond. You
Likewise.
know, Africans have different terms for people who are considered black in America or from the Americas. With different words they associate with them. So, for example, within the Nigerian dialect, the word would be a kata. In Ghana, the Ghana dialect, it would be a Bruni. If people don't know what that means, go and check that out. You can look that up. But just something interesting I found. So the word a Bruni. So this is in Ghana, okay? So taken literally, a Bruni means foreigner, and it's a term that has been used historically to identify white Europeans in Ghana. The word, however, has a complex set of meanings. Over time, a Bruni has been used to refer to foreign whites, foreign Asians, and lighter skinned and often brown skinned diaspora blacks. It has also been applied to Ghanaians returning from abroad who are perceived to be affluent and are often derided as dressing, walking, talking, and acting white. So I just want to draw people's attention to brown skinned diaspora blacks. So how are you brown skinned and black at the same time? Do you think is that possible?
You know, you can't be brown. You can't be two sets of colors. Yeah, either one or the other, brother. Like skin tone wise.
So if there was ever an oxymoron, it was a brown skinned black person.
That does sound off
So
to me.
they're literally telling you, look, the person is brown in skin color, but they are black within their well, they're not even seen as black because look, a bruni means white, so they're calling you white.
Mm-hmm.
They're telling you you're brown skin, but you're a white. You're a white person, and that leads on perfectly to this book here. So this book I found is called The Big C by Langston Hughes, who is a quote-unquote American Negro poet. Um, I will see if I can bring up a picture of him for you. But this poet basically he knew that he had American, he had Indian in him. He knew that his grandmother told him that. But because he looked a bit racially ambiguous, people were always mistaking him different things in his life. So if you get a chance, look up that book, um, The Big C, the autobiography by Langston Hughes. So it's this brother right here. So I suppose, yeah, it depends. Depending on who you are, you might mistake it for one or two or three different things,
Mm.
depending on your disposition, your personal perception. But there's always a part of the book that always came back to me. So I want to read this. So at the time, 1923, the name of Marcus Garvey was known the length and breadth of the west coast of Africa, and the Africans did not laugh at Marcus Garvey as so many people laughed in New York. They hoped what they had heard about him was true, that he really would unify the black world and free and exalt Africa. They did not understand the terrific complications of the colonial problem. They only knew the white man was there in Africa, heavy and oppressive on their backs, and they wanted him to go away. Our problems in America are very much like yours, I told the Africans, especially in the South. I am a Negro too. But they only laughed at me and shook their heads and said, "You white man, you white man." So again, I'll show you the picture of Langston Hughes. Here he is. That's what he looks like. So he
Hey.
went to Africa, his motherland. Okay. He went home to where the story started, and they said, "You white man, you white man." So which part about this guy biologically makes him a white man?
Fair enough. They're not from there, blood.
Right. So it was the only place in the world where I've ever been called a white man. They looked at my copper brown skin. Oh, so what happened to his black skin? Where did that go? Why did he call himself a copper brown person? Did he know something that maybe a lot of you don't know about himself? He could have compared to himself to like, a lot of different things. But why choose copper? So it was the only place in the world where I've ever been called a white man. They looked at my copper brown skin and straight black hair, like my grandmother's Indian hair, except a little curly, and they said, "You, white man." One of the crewmen from Liberia working on our ship, who had seen many American Negroes of various shades and colors and knew much of America, explained to me, "Here," he said, "on the West Coast, there are not many colored people, people of mixed blood, and those foreign colored men who are here come mostly as missionaries to teach us something since they think we know nothing, or they come from the West Indies as clerks and administrators in the colonial governments to help carry out the white man's laws. So the Africans call them all white men." So I'll repeat that again. On the West Coast, there are not many colored people, people of mixed blood, and those foreign colored men who are here come mostly as missionaries to teach us something, since they think we know nothing, or they come from the West Indies as clerks and administrators in the colonial governments to help carry out the white man's laws. So the Africans call them all white men. So if white is a biology, this man couldn't stand here in Africa calling people that look like you from the West Indies white men. So clearly, white isn't a biological makeup of people. So he went on to say, the author, "But I am not white," I said. "You are not black either," the crewman said simply. "There is a man of my color," and he pointed to George, the pantryman, who protested loudly. "Don't point at me," George said. "I'm from Lexington, Kentucky, USA, and no African blood, nowhere." "You black," said the crewman. "I can part my hair," said George, "and it ain't nappy." But to tell the truth, George shaved a part in his hair every other week since the comb wouldn't work. The crewman knew this, so they both laughed loudly, but George's face was as African as Africa. Yet dark as he was, George always referred to himself as brown skin, and it was not until years later, when a dark-skinned minister in New Jersey denounced me to his congregation for using the word black to describe him in a newspaper article, that I realized that most dark Negroes in America do not like the word black at all. They prefer to be referred to as brown skin, or at the most as dark brown skin, no matter how dark they really are. So it seems to me that, once upon a time you could get in a lot of trouble for calling someone black.
Mhm.
These people, your ancestors, your family tree down the line, they weren't going with this black word, They
Mm.
didn't want nothing to do with it because they knew black didn't mean anything good. Black male, black ball, black list, it's all bad things.
Mhm.
Black magic, black market.
Black cats, black sheep.
None of these people's ancestral tribes were called black people, the tribe of black. There was no such thing as that. So
Mhm.
if they weren't proud to have this word bestowed on them, why are you so proud of this word right now? I'll read it again. Uh, there is a man of my color, and he pointed to George, the pantryman, who protested loudly. Don't point at me, George said. I'm from Lexington, Kentucky, USA, and no African blood nowhere. You black, said the crewman. I can part my hair, said George, and it ain't nappy. But to tell the truth, George shaved a part in his hair every other week, since the comb wouldn't work. The crewman knew this, so they both laughed loudly, for George's face was as African as Africa. Yet dark as he was, George always referred to himself as brown skin, and it was not until years later when a dark-skinned minister in New Jersey denounced me to his congregation for using the word black to describe him in a newspaper article that I realized that most dark Negroes in America do not like the word black at all. They prefer to be referred to as brown skin, or at the most, as dark brown skin, no matter how dark they really are. So look, they're telling you here people knew where they were from and they were sensible enough to know what skin color they are. The guy
Mhm.
articulated to you, I'm from Lexington, Kentucky, and he's not black because he can see he's brown. He clearly knows this.
Mhm.
So the question I ask is, why don't you know that today? So
Programming.
if black was such an insult to your ancestors, what do you think they think of you now using it? If they were to come back from the dead and see you using that word now on yourself, would they see you as an intelligent person or would they see you as a village idiot? If we're just going to be real.
Well, village idiot, isn't it?
Because, Stevie Wonder can see that you're brown skin.
Mhm.
Because that's what you are. That's what you've always been. You come in different shades of brown. We showed you the brown color palette already. And that's what you are. That's what you've always been. There's a reason why you're given words. You're given these words to, you know, bring bad luck upon yourself, to
Mm.
not properly describe yourself.
Okay.
So here we have the Chinese Swedes, the Forest Finns, and the Great Migration. How Finnish immigrants helped build America. So, uh, currently in Finland, like elsewhere in Europe, we're hearing much about immigration and how challenging it is for new arrivals to integrate into society. Finns themselves, of course, have a long history of leaving Finland to live elsewhere, sometimes as refugees from war or famine, other times to simply try and make a better life for themselves and their families. One popular destination was the United States, so let's take a quick look at how Finns fared in the New World and how well they settled into life far away from home. I just want to go down to bring attention to some. Where is it? There we go. The Midwest is well known for having the highest concentration of Finns in the United States. During the 1860s through the 1930s, Finns flocked from Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, an area known as the Finhawk. Oh wait, one second, I think we've got an echo going. Okay. Yo, Chief, you still there? What you thinking? still there, bro?
Yeah, sorry, bro. So I just stepped away.
Okay. All right. So the Midwest is well known for having the highest concentration of Finns in the United States. During the 1860s through the 1930s, Finns flocked to Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, an area known as the Finn Hook. This
Mhm.
huge influx is sometimes called the Great Migration and is the largest wave of Finnish immigrants in American history. The majority of Finnish immigrants came from Ostrobothnia, due in part to a major crop failure that occurred in 1867. However, many people from southern Finland and Lapland also made the long journey across the Atlantic. You know what's crazy here? Look, this is a Finnish person, but you see, like, he even looks a bit, Asiatic. I mean, I know
Mhm.
they're all, Asiatics in a sense, but you
Mhm.
know what I'm saying, like the Mongoloid type of features.
Look, I Asian,
Right,
Chinese,
right,
Chinese in them,
exactly. So then ask yourselves, like, is there much difference between a so-called Caucasian and a so-called Mongoloid, within these racial categories that they've created?
all look similar to me.
So, uh, there was a part I wanted to. Here we go. This is what I wanted. Finns face racial discrimination, with many people using the Finnish language as proof that Finns were not European and thus fair game to be subject to unfair treatment. Some argued that Finns were Asian, meaning they should be barred from citizenship under the Asian Exclusion Act of the early 1900s. The word Finlander was used as a slur along with China Swede and Roundhead. So again, look, these people were not white on arrival either. They were trying to pass them off as mongoloids and say that they're one and the same people. So they were snitching, they were dry snitching right there, letting you know who's who, what's what.
Mm.
But obviously after a while, these people, like the Italians we showed you, like the other Europeans, they got their come up. You know.
Mhm.
Um. So yeah. So at this point now, um, yeah, people should know, or hopefully people have got a really in-depth understanding of how black and white works. How does it
Mm.
work as a color in the color spectrum? There's supposedly within the color spectrum, what is a black and white person? Socially, what is that? What does it mean to be black and white? So that was the main outline of the first presentation. So I'm going to open up the floor for Chief Inca if he wants to say a few bits and pieces, and then we're going to freestyle it from here. Now that we've got through the meaty stuff, as they say.
I mean, the information you got was well valid, well needed. You know what I mean? I mean, um, most people are coming from don't know the definitions or etymology of colors
Right.
of words that they use, even law.
Mm.
But I can't disagree with one thing you said, bro. The truth is the truth, innit? Whether you like it or not, brother.
And I know we spoke about this a little bit before, off air,
Mm.
but I don't think it was a coincidence that we ended up doing this particular presentation before Black History Month in the UK in October.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it all happens for a reason because our people are going to be getting ready to celebrate that when it's not really a celebration, to be honest,
Mm.
because there's no such thing as a black person. So what are you celebrating?
Exactly.
Celebrating the fact that you was at the bottom of Noah's Ark, you know,
Mm-hmm.
seems crazy to yeah, it seems crazy to me. I mean, again, not telling anyone what to think, what to do after you've watched this. Obviously, like I showed you, identity is a choice. I don't have the right to self-identify any of you. Um, just like no one has the right to self-identify me because I've just proved it's a moral choice because
Mm-hmm.
people that you get your information and your history from, I told you, is a choice that you make. So you have the choice to be these things, to be black. It's a choice. But you have to understand that there are consequences that are going to come with that. If you want to be that and do that, no one's stopping you. Of course, they're not stopping you. No one's stopping you. You're free to do that, but you can't also be upset at the same time when certain things happen as a result of that. You can't
Mm.
have it both ways. And really and truly, now you shouldn't even want to be that.
That's not a
Once you see what
nationality.
once you see what the word really means, it's not even talking about you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless you are pale, then I suppose you are a black person. But if you're not, and you consider yourself to be a person of what they say, melanated, whatever, whatever, then you know, I would suggest, I would suggest that you drop that word altogether. Start describing yourself properly to show people that you understand how life works. Show them that you still understand what you learned as a child. When you grew up learning the colors of the rainbow at nursery.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, these social statuses are a way to test your intelligence to see how far you've come on your journey in life. Have you progressed or have you digressed? Black shows that you've digressed. You've completely just, you succumb to whatever you've been shown on TV, whatever, whatever, and that you're there to be mistreated, you're there to be tricked and used and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. It's a measure of intelligence. It's used, it's put there. That's why they have to keep doing the census so often. It's nothing to do with numbers. They want to see how intelligent you are.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see like, is this person going to be a grown adult and actually, you know, tell me that this is silly. That obviously a color isn't a nationality or a place, and black doesn't best describe me.
Mm. That's true. I mean, I tell people this all the time. Like, I'm not a black person, brother. Like, my skin is not black. My skin is brown. But there's no if buts, no maybes, man. I never seen a black person in my life. Like, if I speak to them Africans, so to speak, or even West Africans, they don't describe themselves as they don't describe themselves as black amongst their people. But to other people, they'll put themselves as black people. But when of themselves, of their own people or their own tribe, they do by tribe. They don't call themselves Africans. They don't call themselves black. Say no, but I am Igbo. I am so and so. I am so and so tribe.
Mm-hmm.
You know. But I
Yeah,
digress.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, good point. They can break down to you the tribe that they still come from because that's their identity. The continent of Africa is not their identity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people could say, oh, well, I don't know my tribe because it was taken away from me. But again, I have to ask you, was it really taken away from you? Because, they tell you all the time in all these movies or documentaries you came from West Africa. Your DNA results tell you that. So then why haven't you been able to pinpoint your tribe still? What's stopping you? What's the block? What's the obstacle?
Why? Why? Hey, you just touched on something that's very important. Like, what is West Indians culture? Does anybody know? Please write down in the comment section or phone lines. What is West Indians culture? Does
Yeah, that's
anybody
good.
know? Does anyone know what is West Indians culture?
That's a good
Or,
question.
or if or even do they have a culture?
Mm, yeah, because if you had to ask a lot of people, what is West Indian culture? What kind of things would they say? What kind of responses would they give? All right, Jammy Dodger. All right, cool stuff. Cool, cool. Yeah. So yeah, people in the chat, it's time for your interaction. So we want to know what is your definition of West Indian culture? What is it? What is West Indian culture?
I'll give you the guys the phone line again just in case you want to call in or whatnot, or even just text in. Text my phone and we can speak that way, whatever. So the number is 07491525768. So the number is again 07491525768. You can speak to myself, who is Chief Inca or Copper. But like I said, does anybody know what is West Indian culture?
All right. So so Lazan said we chat patois. I love music and a lot of very spicy food. Yeah, real talk. Yeah,
Hmm.
all right.
Anybody else got more suggestions? Any suggestions? Any more stuff? There's the biggest clue out there, but I'm not going to say anything.
Okay, now you said that, I know exactly what it is. So yeah, someone's got it. Somebody's got to get it. Oh, whose mic's muffled?
These mics muffled mine.
All right, press one if you can hear me. Okay, and just let me know, and then we'll do a sound check for Chief Inca as well. So if I'm sounding to you clear as day, everything's good. Press one. Our culture is our identity. Okay, yeah, it's fun, but
What is our culture though, Chad? Because I said them things. Most people don't know what the hell is our culture is. So I'm gonna ask people what them culture is, rude boy.
where did it stem from?
Yeah,
From what people, what original people did it stem from? And we are the sea people and the true, here we go. And we are the sea people and the true Arawak, aka Lokono tribe. Yep.
yeah, that's good. From the Greater Antilles, yes,
Mhm. Mhm.
but that's just only for 4 islands. But there's a lesser Antilles and the Caribs or Kalanagos.
Mm.
You know, two different tribes of Indians in the West Indies.
Mm.
But what is their culture? You can say that, yeah, that's correct, Lazan. We're not gonna say nothing. But what is their culture? Like, how do I differentiate between an African, so to speak, and a West Indian? What is a we all know what African culture is, what their culture is. What is a West Indian culture? I want to know. Someone must tell me what is the culture is.
Yeah, someone in here should get it. Think to recent, very recent times. We're talking like in the last few days. I should have even said that, but
Give
I
them
shouldn't have
clues.
said it.
Don't give them no
I
clues.
shouldn't have said it. But it is what it
This,
is, man.
this
It's
is
all
this,
fun, man.
this should be obvious to any West Indian or any
Mm,
Indian in the Americas
right.
have similar culture,
Yeah.
the same rascal people. But yeah, what is the culture? What is your traditions?
Obviously, we're the children of the star. Okay, but what do you see in every part of the West Indies, and what do you also see in Brazil? What do you see in Louisiana? What type of celebration do you see across all of those places? Right. We wear feathers, they don't. We have carnivals, they don't. We also have two different specific diets. Bang. There we go. Thank you, Lazon.
Thank you.
Here we go. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah. So
True.
get to that carnival. So let's just play. Let's play a game of can you match these pictures up? All right. We're just freestyling right now. So let's type in carnival, uh, Trinidad, for example. Okay, so we would say this is a typical carnival scene, right?
Yeah.
The picture's not that big, but you get the gist. Okay. Hold on, my laptop's a bit frozen. So I have to this with right. All these pictures here that you can see. Alright, bear with me, people. Yeah, I'm just doing some funniness. For the most part, represents carnival, typical carnival scene. So, what are the people wearing? What kind of color combinations are they wearing? What does it look like? Alright, keep this in mind. So, uh, African, West African celebrations. Let's even take this one for example.
Mm.
So look, so this is your ancestors here, and I put that in quotation marks. So this is their celebration, and I just showed you carnival. Alright, so keep these images in your head. And now, if that picture comes up, there it is. Alright, and here you've got Mochi Indians from Peru. So let's enlarge this picture right here. Culture is
Culture
the
is the
food.
food.
Exactly, yeah, and the foods are completely different.
Yeah, that's correct. Jamie did it. But not only the food though.
They cut the picture. I don't know why they did that. This one's a better view. This one's a better view. So look on this here. So which one looked closer to the carnival scenes? Was it the picture of the so-called ancestors in West Africa, or this picture here? Which one closely resembled the color schemes, the attire? Which one looked closer? Which one? Powwow. Yeah, powwow's part of the culture as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, powwow is literally people meeting up to have our entire lifestyle is our culture.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Chief Inca, which one looks closer to the carnival picture? Was it the previous picture or the one I'm showing now?
The Trinidad man, Trinidad Carnival man, the Carib Carnival man. You know what I mean? The less Antilles man, that like that
Right.
multi
So
Indian.
my question is, if these people are of a what would be considered Mongoloid category of people, and they all got killed off by conquistadors and invaders and colonizers and such forth, why did you carry on their tradition of dead people that weren't related to you, and not the other people that I just showed you back in your motherland? Why would you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you make that choice to do that? Why would you not honor your ancestors and pick up this tradition here? Why would you take on this? Why would you be riding another man's culture if it wasn't already yours in the beginning? Doesn't really make sense to me.
Mm-hmm. It's true. No, it's true, bro.
You
It's
know,
very much true.
you can't pick up a culture from people that are dead because they're not alive to pass it on to you.
Mm-hmm. I say this all the time to people.
So here, this is a good Instagram page. So you guys, if you're on Instagram, definitely follow this page here, Tyrone Lamar Lorraine. Um, so this book that he's using this information from. I actually have this book. It's called the Atlantic Journal of Friend by C.S. Rafinesque, and there's a particular part in the book called the Black Primitive Nations of America. So C.S. Rafinesque, he was like a French explorer, a young French explorer. He did a lot of trips to the Americas. He read a lot of previous accounts of people that had gone there, and it was to his understanding that there was ancient quote unquote black civilizations that existed across the Americas. Okay, so these snapshots are actually from Abdul Legend's video. If you know who that is, then definitely subscribe to that channel and watch that video. Um, so it starts with the ancient caracals of Haiti, represented as a nation of beasts. So look, these are the people that was in Haiti. These people right here. And again, look at what they're wearing. What are they wearing? And what do you wear? At Carnival, what do you wear? Do you not wear what these people are wearing?
Yep.
Yep.
They're dressed just like you. And look, these aren't African. They look same ancient characters of Haiti. So ancient means original people.
Yeah. How am
Ancient.
I sounding, Copper? Sorry, how am I sounding?
All right, I could hear a little bit of an echo though.
Alright, let me put in the thing. Sorry, bro.
All right.
Mic check. Can anyone hear me? Press 1.
Yep. You sound good on my end, but yeah, just drop a one and let us know. So let's keep going. Number 2, the Califernams of the Carib Islands, called Black Caribs or Wanini by others, are a black branch of Caribs. So again, he's talking about early ancient civilizations. So he's talking about black Caribs already being there. Already there. Look, Carib Islands. So he's talking about West Indies, West Indian islands. Let's keep going. The Arguas of Kutara, mentioned by Garcias in the West Indies, quite black. So look again, look, he's telling you right here, these people are already there in the West Indies. These people weren't African explorers who went there to have a vacation and decided to stay. These are old people, old people going back to the beginning of time. The black auroras of Rayleigh, of Ururus, of the Spaniards, ugly black or brown Negroes yet existing near the Orinoco. So again, this is the Americas, black or brown Negroes. Let's keep going. The Chamas of Guyana, brown Negroes like Hottentots. So when they use the word Hottentots, they're talking about people in South Africa. That's the name that they gave to them. So they're comparing you to the people that they already met in South Africa, in Guyana. So that means in Guyana, your so-called brown skin, now called black, they're telling you Guyana faces like you was already there. So if you're Guyana, where do you come from? The Mangipas and Portuguese of Nienhof, the Motayas of Nivet, all of Brazil, brown Negroes with curly hair. So look, they're telling you they went to Brazil, they saw you there. They went to the West Indies, they saw you there. And again, this is by I always forget the guy's name. Always forget the guy's name. Is it Arnaldo's Montanas?
I think so, but I can't even remember from it.
Oh man, it might be Arnaldo's Montanas, but yeah. Let's keep going. And then look, look, so he even went to the trouble of putting it in your face right here, side by side.
Mm-hmm.
Again, these people are not Africans in the picture. This is a picture of a scene of the first set of Indians taken from the West Indies and taken back to Barcelona, taken back to Spain. In the full picture, I don't have it, but in the full picture, on this side, on the left, is the Spanish royalty, and this is them. And then look, they didn't just take you; they took your animals as well with them. This is a tropical parrot, so they took this from the Americas. That's how you know that these people are from the Americas as well. Because why would this person from Africa be holding a parrot which is from the Americas? Doesn't make any sense. So look right here, this is you. This is you here, and this is what you was doing already all the way back here. So again, who are you? Are you a black person or are you this person here? Because this person is brown to me. This dark person is brown to me. All these people look brown to me. They don't look black. These people in this picture look brown to me. Look, this stripe in the Trinidad flag is black. No one in this procession is the color of that stripe in the Trini flag.
Yeah.
So, what are you? What are you? Let's keep going. Yeah, this is same Insta page. This is something I found. And again, going back to the census. So look, state of the census records. Um, the interim censuses of Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Montana can be very useful to the researcher. In those states where reservations are located, the interim census often includes an enumeration of the reservations. Even if a family is living off the reservation, the designation of Indian is still given. As in the case of federal censuses, the researcher needs to keep in mind that a Native American family may be listed as mulatto or black on an interim census. So there you have it right there. What do you associate with being black today? And who would they have considered black back then? So what would these Indians had to have looked like to fall under their perception of blackness or mulatto? What would they have had to look like?
Mhm.
All right, and look, people talking about the cuisine. So this right here is, you know, typical Southern cuisine. So you've got your roasted pig. So obviously, for those of you that don't know, barbecue is an Arawak word. If you look up the etymology of that, you'll see that. And look, you've got different types of fish that are native to America. These are obviously catfish, fried fish. A lot of West Indians like fried fish. Even at one point, you was eating raccoons because again, you was already here, so you was making use of the food sources around you. So that would be your equivalent of bushmeat, for example. So obviously, you're only going to eat what's native to you. That's why your cuisine is different. So then, uh, this is what I wanted to draw people's attention to. So, by Charles Hudson about the southeastern Indians. To a far greater degree than anyone realizes, several of the most important food dishes of the southeastern Indians live on today in the soul food eaten by both black and white southerners. But we know where soul food comes from. Hominy, for example, is still eaten. Sofki live on as grits. Cornbread is used by southern cooks. Indian fritters, variously known as hoe cake or Johnny cake.
Right.
Indians boiled cornbread is present in southern cuisine as cornmeal dumplings
No.
and as hush puppies. Yeah, go on, bro.
No. Go on.
Alright. Um, Southerners cook their beans and field peas by boiling them, as did the Indians. Like the Indians, they cure their meat and smoke it over hickory coals. So look, they say you Indians started the whole barbecuing thing. So that means your jerk chicken. That's you. You was already doing that. It's not a foreign practice to you.
Yep. And FYI, Africans don't do jerk food, brother. Not jerk food. The only jerk food is they come in contact with a West Indian or American Indian that teaches them or show
Mm,
them how to jerk.
right, right. Chad, yeah, yeah. Catfish is a mainland fish. West Indians don't have that. We would have like flying fish or red snapper, those kind of things there. So it's just interesting to me that, you know, main people in the mainland, in the south, are eating the food of the Indians, but they're Africans apparently. You know, depending on what you know, what you believe. So again, how are you making a food of a people which you're not biologically associated with in any way? Why would you be cooking that? Why aren't you cooking, you know, things from over there?
Mhm.
Why do you have forgotten your ancestry of that other hemisphere and picked up a food of another group of people if you're not them? Doesn't make sense. And
No.
you can even see in this picture here. Look, many
Exactly the same.
mm, look, yeah, let me move it up right there.
Exactly the word start saying. You see, you are your ancestor, man.
Things don't happen for coincidences. I hope people gathered that as well from this video. Like, look, same yesterday as it is today. Keep going. Same thing. A female slave, a native of America. named Alice. She was born in Philadelphia of parents who came from Barbados and lived in that city until she was 10 years old. When her master removed her to Dunk's Ferry, in which neighborhood she continued to the end of her days. She remembered the ground on which Philadelphia stands when it was a wilderness, and when the Indians, its chief inhabitants, hunted wild game in the woods. So, what does that make Alice?
Indian.
Why she recollect what the Indians were doing? She's not talking about what the Africans were doing. Why not? Not talking about how things used to be back home when her Bajan parents spoke of their grandfather and grandmother from blah blah tribe across the sea.
Right.
But yeah, like everybody looks the way how they do in life because that's the way how they're meant to look from their own personal story of creation, how they ended up here. So in the early 1560s, a Spanish official wrote to the king that in the island of Puerto Rico there are above 15,000 Negroes and less than 500 Spaniards. And in all of the islands of Hispaniola there may be 2,000 Spaniards and there are over 30,000 Negroes. The same case in the island of Cuba and in Veracruz, Puerto de Cavalos, which is in Honduras, and in Nombre de Dios, Cartagena, San Maria, and in the coast of Venezuela, where there are 20 Negroes, there are one white man. So why would they make themselves a deliberate ethnic minority? Doesn't really make sense. Because obviously, if you do that, you're going to catch some hands. Obviously, I'm going to look around and see that there's not that many of you and there's a whole lot of me, so your slavery thing's not going to work out.
Mhm.
Because you've always been a majority, you've always been there. So of course they came there, and for every one of you, that like every one of them, there was endless numbers of you. That's the way how it is. That's the way it is. Let's try to open up this page. All right. And then look, see, you got your rest of them. And you pre on the hat, and look, you see it right here. Teotihuacan, and that's an ancient American civilization. So if these people are from Ethiopia, why they're wearing this from ancient America? Where's their Ethiopian clothes?
Mhm.
That's the question I would ask.
Yeah.
Here you go. You got statuettes, drum and conch, trumpet, and this is Colina culture. Colima is in Mexico, and then you got your West Indians down here. So where did you really get all your history and your ancestry from? Where did you get that?
From the fellow man. From the white man. You get me? You know what, one.
So, do you want to touch on carnival for the last part?
What, the interaction?
Yeah, all of that stuff, man.
Alright. So me and a copper went to carnival in a tribal attire. So headdress, face paint, blah 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 blah. So got to jumped on the train now from London Bridge, and copper saw some Asian woman or Chinese woman with a little pitney, a child and a partner. And copper noticed it. I didn't notice it. I wasn't paying attention. I was meaning was talking, but he paid attention. He's like, "Oh, D, you know, she little girl was saying, 'Oh, look, mummy, Indian, Indian, Indian,' with a big old smile on her face, and the mum just turned around and smiled. That's one of them, copper. You tell the next interaction.
Yeah, man. I remember we was on the train. We was on the train on our way to carnival, and then a group of boys approached us. They were like a group of dancers. Like they had their t-shirts on with their Instagram addies on it. And then one of them, he looked at us, he saw the feathers, and he was like, "Oh, have you come as parrots?" So I was confused. I was a bit taken back. I didn't really know what he was talking about. So then Chief Ink was like, no, no, we're not no parrots. So then his friend must have said to him, they're not parrots, they're Indians. And then he turned back and he was like, oh, yeah, yeah, okay, so Red Indians, yeah? And we were like, yeah. And he's like, oh, yeah, so you come to represent. Yeah, I respect that. But he knew what to say straight away, you know? He could have said anything else he wanted in the world. He could have said, I don't believe that. Or are you sure? He didn't ask any, he was under any confusions, man. And it was the same thing throughout the rest of the day, man. You know? With the way me and Chief Inca were dressed, no one else was dressed like that. Unless they was on a float or a parade.
Yeah, yeah,
And even then, people were looking at them thinking, "Oh yeah, they're the original people." They're just looking at it as well, they've come dressed up for 24 hours. You know, there's a difference. The difference when you're wearing it for a float or a parade, and when you're wearing it because you're wearing it. People notice the difference. That's what I took from the day as well. People
yeah,
notice.
yeah.
People don't look at the people in the float the same way as they look at you when you're rocking it outside of the float and the parade.
That's
They
true.
don't do that.
That's true because even we linked up with one of my brethren, my friend at Carnival, and was a sat down on a doorstep and we was charging. If you ever been to Nottingham Carnival, if anyone's been to Nottingham Carnival, then you know in that area they charge the residents that have that lives on the street. They charge sometimes toilet facilities. They use your toilet like £1 or $1 or €1 or £2 or whatever to use the
Mhm.
toilet because it's so rampack and Carnival. And you've got little cubicles and it's all scattered around the place. So it's hard for people to go to the toilet when they need to go to the toilet. So anyway, to cut a long story short, we sat down and we came across with some Jamaicans that want to use the toilet. Some Jamaicans that want to use the toilet. That rotted Indian, blood clot, Indian. Where you from, brother? I said, look from my top, brother. Oh, Jamaican Cuba. That rotted.
Yeah, I remember
Yo,
that guy.
Jamaican Arawak Indian. Say, yo, you know there's bare Indians in Jamaica that bust for an hour, you know. I said, well, what, like Maroon and them? I said, yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Is it? And a
Mm.
big old smile. Like West Indians were so excited to see me in Copper. To see a real life Indian, but not connecting two and two to get four. I'm thinking like, if he's an Indian, what am I?
Mhm.
And we come from the same rotted place,
Right.
you know. But
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. Like people literally look at you like, when you thought someone died, but then
mhm,
you found out they're okay and they're alive. That's what it was like. It was weird like that.
yeah,
I remember on the way to Queensway Station going home, and that one guy walked past, and he walked past, and then he just realized what he saw, and his neck like went back. His neck went all the
yeah,
way back. I thought that was an owl.
yeah,
The way
that
his neck
rotted
spun back round, and he was like,
Indian.
like he'd seen like a ghost man. He was like, "Rotted Indian, yeah." It's like, "Oh, so you're Indian from Jamaica? Is you Jamaican?" Like he was tripping over his words. Like it's like, so you're from Jamaica and an Indian. Like it was
Mhm,
crazy.
mhm,
But
yeah,
that's what it was like, man. Yeah, it was interesting, man. It was interesting. Like, a lot of
very,
people know. So there's a lot of people that do know, man. They do understand, but
yeah,
obviously we know other propaganda gets put into the front row of our attention, like so-called Black History Month, which is coming up.
mhm. So, you know, Copper, people gravitate people gravitate to what resonates with their spirit, innit? And
Mm.
from
Talking to your
my
mic a little
observation,
bit more,
oh, sorry. So
bro. There we go.
people gravitate to what resonates with their spirit. So
Mhm.
obviously, from my observation at Carnival,
Mm.
all my interaction with West Indians and even non-West Indians or non-Americans, shall I say, um, they came up and spoke to us and was happy. Even
Mm.
that Zulu guy. Remember that Zulu guy that we came
Mm.
across?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, he noticed straight away. He was like, "Yeah, I like the look of the feathers. They remind me of back home." So then I remember you asked him, "So where are you from?" He's like, "He's from South Africa. He's from Zimbabwe. He's a Zulu. Zulus wear similar attire." And speaking to that guy about Indians, he was like, "Yeah, he knows about Indians, man." He said Zulus know all about them.
Mhm.
He's like,
Yeah.
Zulus used to be rocking with them, man. So I mean, like, because you assume that people don't know certain things, that's on you, because you need to start challenging people to have these kind of conversations which you're not going to get in, a normal context. Once you start asking people the right kind of questions, you get the right kind of answers. But people aren't asking the right questions. That's why they're not getting certain information. But the people that are around you are like a hub of information. You'd be surprised what people know. You think people don't know certain things just because you don't know it, but they know. They just don't feel to talk about it because, one, who are they going to be chatting it to, you know? And two, in how many situations are they going to need to speak about it?
That's true.
So
That's
yeah,
true.
most people know. They understand the facts, man. They understand the facts, man. I've spoken to plenty of people from West Africa who understand the concept of, you know, life of so-called melanated people being a global originating factor, not confined to a single piece of land. Like they don't get
Yep.
angry or upset about this stuff. To them, it's perfectly feasible. So my question is, why is it not feasible to the actual group of people who need to know the information the most?
Well, where it comes to our people, they're a bit confused. They
Mm,
believe something else because the white man tell them you come
mm,
from this place, but they have their own culture, which doesn't reflect the culture that the people are telling that that they come from. But I never really understood that because as a little boy growing up, I remember my grandma, when I went to my first ever carnival, my nan said to me, "Yo, this is our culture, you know." I said, "Oh, okay, nan, yeah, this is our culture." And then, my nan actually told me, not my nan, but my great grandmother told me that her father was a black Indian. I was like, "No, what mean with black Indian? What, like them Pakistani people?" Like, no, no, man. Indian from Jamaica, black Indian from Jamaica, man. Me I talk to them, man. Wait. I thought, okay, man. But at the time, at that particular time, I didn't know what she was talking about. But as I get older, I started to make sense what she said. You
mm.
know, you come to realize that, raw. So I've been lied to. I thought we were all Africans, but no, you just realize who you are and what you are, innit? There will come a time.
I'm so glad you said that, man, because you just reminded me. I had this little thing right here, man, just before we close out soon. The use of the terms Negro and Black to include persons of Native American ancestry in Anglo North America by Jack D. Forbes. I'm not going to go into all of this, because again, I want people to be proactive. I want you to go and start looking up this stuff that you saw in the video and reading it in your own time, getting your own concepts and your own thoughts and perceptions out of it. So, in 1854, the California State Supreme Court sought to bar all non Caucasians from equal citizenship and civil rights. The court stated, the word black may include all Negroes, but the term Negro does not include all black persons. We are of the opinion that the words white, Negro, mulatto, and black person, whenever they occur in our Constitution, must be taken in their generic sense. That the words black person in the 14th section must be taken as contra distinguished from white, and necessarily includes all races other than the Caucasian. So they're telling you there, Negro doesn't mean black. And this was in 1854, even they were saying this. But there's one part of this I wanted to touch on, which pertains to over here that I want people to think about. So if you're living over this side, I want you to hear this bit. Uh, where is it? But yeah, definitely people pull up this document here, read this, it's really good. It talks about Governor William Young and how he was using the concept of blackness to wash away the identity of you if you're a West Indian. So this your black identity comes from this man, Governor William Young. He's the one that decided you're black. You didn't decide that for yourself. Your ancestors weren't rocking with that. So he's the guy that started all of that. So look up Governor William Young. That it'll be in this document anyway. But while I'm looking at this, any more thoughts you got on your head, Chief?
Uh, I would say people don't take our word for it, and just do your own research. Don't take no man's word. To do your own research and find information out for yourself. Then connect the dots for yourself and look about your own history or what you've been told. Or even ask your great grandparents if they're still alive and do your genealogy. Don't do your DNA test. Do your genealogy, which basically is tracing your forefathers or your ancestors. So that's like your mother's mother, your mother's father, and way back in it. Like keep going back as you can. You know. But what else I'm gonna say? Yeah, that's because people think this and that. But listen, who told you was African? Because when I was growing up, and my great grandfather father lived up to be 90 something. When I asked him about slavery, he just looked at me like, "What the hell are you talking about, man? You're from Jamaica, me as a farmer." He didn't say nothing about freedom papers, nothing about getting beaten. Not him, but like old stories passed down to from generation to generation. Nothing of that sort of ever took place. You know, um, ask questions. Even ask some Africans about the so-called slavery thing. Because I've asked many Africans from West Africa, and they always say to me, "What the hell are you talking about, bro? Not in my tribe." Like they look at me funny, like, "Why you ask that question?" I thought, "Oh, because they say that the people from the West Indies and the Americas are from your place." It's like he didn't say anything, but obviously I knew, knowing what I know now, I knew this guy. He knows, isn't it? That we're not the same people.
Mm.
But just ask and do your own personal research and see what outcome you get. Don't listen to what people tell you. God, this hasn't helped us by listening to what other people tell you or what a white man tell you X, Y, and Z and show you films and this and that and a third. You just take it for face value. No, do you sit down and do your own personal research and even talk to your family members?
Mm.
You know, your family members are not gonna lie to you. But yeah, I digress, bro.
No, I agree, man. I agree. I agree, man. If most people are going to be completely honest, you only learned about coming from another place from a TV show in the 70s. So, or that you learned about your ancient ancestry from a television set. You should have heard about that from your family circle. Should have been already passed down somewhere. I mean, no one else learns about where they come from a screen and a remote control. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
When you think about it, it's kind of crazy. That's kind of asinine. How are you going to learn about the first interaction you had with the so-called truth of your past was behind an electronic screen in a
that sounds dodgy to me, but I say, hold on, see, me, you told me about slavery from a TV screen, but my great grandparents never told me nothing or mentioned anything of this sort of nature taking place or where they come from in a natural habitat. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Doesn't make any sense. Somebody's lying and someone telling porcupines like Desmond, park pie. You know what I mean? Someone telling porcupines, man. And I doubt. Obviously, I know it's not gonna be my family members, innit? Because they're not gonna lie to me about where they come from.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Just do your own research. All I gotta say to you, do your own research and ask questions. Like, now that you're an adult, I presume that you're an adult if you're listening. You're able to think for yourself and do for yourself and provide for yourself and X, Y, and Z. So think for yourself, man. Don't let somebody else think for you
Mhm.
or tell you who you is or where your lineages come from.
Yep. Yeah. I would say to people, we're at a time now where really should be time to start trying to do different things, thinking different things, because like Chief Ink already said, the thoughts and ideas and concepts you have clearly aren't working. So you need to ask yourself why they're not working. No, truth is truth, and truth has to prevail. So if this all really was the truth, you would have seen some kind of progression already that you could class as tangible. That something would have happened by now, to verify the truth which you stand by. But the fact that nothing's happened, it should be an indicator.
Mhm.
I don't know if this thing's gonna open. Oh, here we go. Wait. Ah, man. Okay, so this passage from what I was just reading by Jack D. Forbes, I'm just going to break this down. So in 1702, an observer wrote that the wealth of Virginia consisted of slaves or Negroes. By 1806, Virginia judges ruled that a person who was of white appearance was to be presumed free. But in the case of a person visibly appearing to be of the slave race, it is incumbent upon him to make out his freedom. In 1819, South Carolina judges stated flatly the word Negroes has a fixed meaning, slaves. What the English meant by the term Negro when they first began to use it is not clear. Certainly, it was not then synonymous with slave, as a great many persons so classified were free, both in England and in Virginia. Did it mean an African, a black person, or any dark-skinned individual? Today, the term is not widely employed in Britain, although the word black is used to refer to people of various skin colors from all of South Asia, the Middle East, the West Indies, and Africa. Most Native Americans, if living in Britain today, would be regarded as being black, especially if their ancestry were not known. So it speaks for itself, really.
Self-explanatory.
So again, picture the typical image of American Indian, which they misnomer as Native American, because there are key difference between the two. So those people, do they resemble the modern definition of black? So if a so-called native came to England, why would he be considered a black person?
Mm-hmm.
So really, who are
Beautiful.
you? The people like do you know who you are? What is your ancestry? Because they're telling you, look, if you're one of these people and you're living in Britain today, then you're probably classing yourself as black today. Really, you know, you have a deeper meaning, a deeper purpose than that.
Mm.
So again, like that's why Chief Inca was saying, do theology, do your own research into who you are, because especially if you're living over here, same thing. Because look, you could be living here today and taking up an identity which is false to you, and you know this is really you, just misclassification. But yeah, any closing notes or any closing thoughts before we head off?
Um, I think I already stated them already, bro. Like you said, do your own research. Uh, think for yourself and just think for yourself, really, innit? Just be a free thinker, man. Be a free thinker, man. Step out of your comfort zone and think for yourself.
Mm,
All I can say, really. I mean, I said as much as I can say, pertaining to everything that's there on the table. I mean, it's pretty much the culture is right there in your face. You just have to claim it.
hmm.
You know, that's
Yeah,
all I
for
have to
real.
say about that.
Yeah, um, absolutely. So yeah, so the objective was to explain black and white. Hopefully, that's been properly explained now. So I hope people, are gonna start putting things in context, in a sensible manner from what they've just watched, what they've just heard. Um, yeah, I'm gonna drop the links that I used in this. I'm gonna re-edit the description of the video, and everything's gonna go into there. Um, but yeah, thanks to Chief Inca for rocking with me on the debut live stream, finally getting it over the line. Um, thanks to everybody that turned out for the live stream as well. Thanks to all the mods, people watching, all of that good stuff. Hope everybody liked the first presentation. Um, yeah, if you have any suggestions for anything else that you might think might be good to be covered, or things that you think might improve the actual content or anything else, then feel free to let me know. Um, if you haven't liked the video already, then I hope you're going to remember to just quickly slide in them likes. And then yeah, share this, especially if you're over this side. Share the video, um, get other people on board to watch this, get them to start thinking, doing their own thinking. 'Cause people are, I don't really see too many people thinking for themselves around here.
No,
So we need to do what we can to change that.
no.
Um, especially with this Black History Month thing coming up. Don't really, I just showed you like what a black is. So really and truly, we should really be celebrating that. So we don't want people to keep repeating the same mistakes. So yeah, that's me and Chief Inca for first show. Um, good night to everybody. Take it easy. Um, yeah, just have a good one, man.
Right, man, everybody take it easy, man. One love, peace, and blessings.
Gotta push it to the limit, even though it's gonna feel like nobody else is with it. Still the charge is exquisite. I'm baking under the sun. Her moonlight got me caught up in her vision, got me filling up positions. Never competition, never heard of that. Pen strap, shoot 'em every sentence. I've been over rap, no looking back. Ain't no intermission. Hard body tracks over wax to the fifth dimension. Gone. That's in every song. Standing up strong past 3 in the morning. Maneuver through outer space every time I'm in zone. Establishing every trace as I sit on the throne. Feel me switching up the pace from the album before. Losing my foes. Haters